Tell you the awful fucking truth.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I love
Thank you so much for your support.
January, February, into March and April. Same way too.
Thank you, thank you.
May, June or July.
Fucking hell! Horrid!
I never
Absolutely
let a day
horrid!
go by.
I give you shower and you snaky with me. What the fuck did I do to you?
Go away in August or September, in October and November, not to mention warm December. I love
half a dozen pieces of fucking
so
shit.
another year has gone, I'm ready for the next one too.
If I can be with you.
Every single second, every minute, every hour, all the whole year through. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I love you.
I'm out.
Yo, 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 good afternoon, ArchieLuxury channel, Archieverse. This is your host, it's Tan, it's not ArchieLuxury. We're going to be talking wristwatches this Sunday afternoon. And no agenda today, no pre-written scripts. That's not how I do it. I like to freestyle with the chat, freestyle with the panelists, go through anything and everything wristwatch related. So want to just thank everybody, obviously, for joining us this afternoon. I'll say hello to a few folks in the chat. We got Geezer in the chat first, says hi, Tan Sealed. Hey, Geezer. We got Wristful Thinking, who says Furred. Goldfinger 0808. Hey, fellas. Got Christian French or Christian Freck in the chat. And Level 1, wristwatches. Yes, we're going to be going through wristwatches. I've got a beautiful wristwatch here up on the screen, the 5178. And a good friend of the channel, CB, has applied for this piece, and we're wishing CB a lot of luck in getting this piece. It's a guilloche enamel Patek Philippe minute repeater, and just beautiful. Like one of my favorite releases this year from Patek Philippe, and it's got the Breguet hands, Breguet numerals, just a very classic Patek Philippe, and yeah, just super super excited for CB. We're crossing our fingers that he does get the allocation for this piece because it'll be awesome. And yeah, a lot of new releases from a lot of the brands that you guys have heard of. And I mean, I'm sure we've beaten this up, we've beaten it like a dead horse over the past week, talking about releases and everyone's favorites and whatnot. Oh, we got a guest here looking to join. Jonathan Quayle Higgins, good afternoon, good evening.
Hey, good evening. Another Patek talk. I can't believe it.
Nah, I usually start my show with some Patek Philippe's on the screen. We got a super chat here from Wristful Thinking. $2. Will Patek make a yellow gold dress watch again? Jonathan, what do you think?
Is that a question to me?
It's a question to both of us. I'll give it to you first. You're the guest.
I have no idea. I'm not sure. I'm not deep enough into Patek thinking that I can reply to that.
So his question is a good question. It really is centered around Patek Philippe going to market with white metals, whether it's a platinum or white gold. And he's really asking, hey, are they going to go and do a new release in yellow gold? And yellow gold's lost a bit of favor, I think, in terms of popularity with collectors. So I believe the brand is simply just picking white metals because it's popular today. But I believe that there's certain pieces in yellow gold that look better, like the enamel dial World Time that Jamie Opulence has. I think that that's a better piece in yellow gold than it is in a white metal. I don't know if you disagree with that, Jonathan, but that's kind of my guess.
Yeah, but he was asking about the dress watch. So I wouldn't be. I think yellow gold is having a comeback. You know, the fact that Rolex is pushing the GMT Master now in yellow gold is a sign that they're reaching out and they're testing waters. And yellow gold is a classic Patek Philippe color. So I would say yes, for sure they will come out. And yeah, I hope that they're going to do it.
Yeah, this piece, the World Time Cloisonné dial, like this is one I know that Thierry Stern is very much a fan of in yellow gold. So I do believe there's certain pieces that they will go with yellow gold, but I mean, white metals are really dominating the industry today. So I think we're going to have to wait for that resurgence that Jonathan's talking about around yellow gold before it becomes very mainstream, and that they're going to release new releases in a yellow metal, for example. First,
by the way, this is a world timer that lost the shootout between the world timers so badly.
Lost the shootout. By the way, we got another guest on the show. We got Clive Minotaur Wrangler. What's going on, Clivers?
Oh, not much. Sorry if you hear a bunch of dinging in the background. That's me talking to my Uberoki's former private watchsmith.
Cheap Charlie?
No. Cheap Charlie is the watches that, well, I'm not going to say a watch reseller here in, he's probably got more Rolexes in his showcase than like every dealer in the state, frankly.
Awesome. McLovin says, Czapek, coming in rose gold June 2023. Is this exciting for you, Jonathan? I know you're a Czapek fan.
So
I'm a Czapek fan. More power to the brand. I'm happy for them that they announced that they will do something in gold. I hope that until then the issue with the bracelet connection to the case is proven to be solved. And more power to Czapek.
Yeah, they really had some stunning pieces at Watches and Wonders. I was quite impressed. I'll pull up Czapek's website for us to have a look. One of my favorite Czapeks is the obviously everyone's favorite is the Antarctic, but I will show you my favorite Antarctic.
You mean the bicycle?
The bicycle? No, not the
bicycle.
Let's pull up the Antarctic. Let's pull up the Rattrapant Ice Blue here for you guys. This is a beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. The bicycle.
Let me play this, but I'm gonna make sure I don't have any audio. Gotta make sure I pull off the audio. Can I not stop the audio on this one? Yeah, I just don't want to have a copyright issue on the audio. That's sometimes what happens. So,
you think that's like 9 types of stupid because it's for sales. People playing their video is helping to increase their sales, their brand recognition. It's stupid. If you're doing that, you're stupid.
Yeah, you want to know something interesting? It was actually off of the GPHG website. I think I was playing like Kerry Voonalainen's video from the GQ release, and it like copyright excluded for JJ when I was doing Hipstream. But this is my favorite Czapek Antarctic. I don't know, Jonathan, if you think this is worth the money, or if you're not a big fan of this one. But this one is Frozen Star is just a beautiful. I love this style. I think it's just stunning.
Yeah, Frozen Star is very special. It's very complex to produce. From what I'm hearing, I think it has been sold within minutes, so you can't go wrong. Personally, and I'm only judging it from a visual point of view, it's not my cup of tea. But I appreciate that it's super rare, super difficult to make, and I'm happy for Czapek to have all the success that they deserve. I mean, when you listen to Xavier talking to people, it's just amazing. He's such a friendly and knowledgeable guy, and he's a people catcher. He has the ability. No, he has the ability to energize and excite people.
Oh, I was going to say, does he let them go? Hopefully, he catches and releases. Otherwise, it's like kidnapping, or at best, or maybe a 13th Amendment violation.
So how would you differentiate or compare Xavier from FP Journe as a CEO or leader of a company in terms of personality?
Uh, at the risk of appearing to be a bitch, I can't tell you much about FP Journe. I've never seen an interview with him. I've never seen a video. I'm hearing that he is a very difficult person, and quite the contrary to Xavier. But I've heard many things about Xavier. Never heard a thing about FP Journe.
And look, this is important, right? Like, I think a lot of watch collectors today that are looking to move from the major brands, the Trinity brands, Rolex, even and into independence, want to have a connection with the watchmaker. They want to have a connection with
Yeah.
the brand. I know, for example, from my own experience, when I was looking at a Moser, I reached out to Edouard Milan, like on LinkedIn. Actually, I sent him a message and he responded, and we had a nice chat. So a lot of these brands definitely have very accessible business executives as well as watchmakers that would be willing to engage with watch collectors, which I think it really heightens people's experience with the brand. I know for yourself, Jonathan, working with Sven Anderson and
Yes.
Benjamin Chi, you've had a pretty close relationship with both of them.
Yes.
The company Sven Anderson as well as Benjamin Chi himself.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's really I'm sure that
See?
amplified your experience, your positive
Of course,
experience with the brand.
and it's so refreshing to have a different experience from what you hear from AP, for example, when you're basically rejected at the door. So it's so different, and it's so good to hear those different stories. Yeah.
Red Shovel says he just had a sit down with Xavier and fantastic presentation of his watches. I've heard good things. I know that Jonathan's met him, and everyone said very positive things about Xavier and his brand, which is
Yay.
which is great to see, right? It's great
Yeah.
to see independent watchmakers engaging with watch collectors and enthusiasts and getting people really excited about the pieces.
Yeah, totally agree. Tanzil, I apologize. I have to go because my dinner is ready.
I will not let you leave until you tell me what you're having for dinner.
If you let me on, I'll be back
Please tell me,
later.
please tell me it's cabbage dish. It's cabbage dish, isn't it? Cabbage.
Jonathan, you have one question before you go. It's a super chat from
I
McLovin.
have one question. Okay.
$2.79 Canadian. McLovin, Jonathan Quayle Higgins, elaborate on Czapek strap release issue.
So I'm reading a lot on Rolex forum that people complain that there is too much play of the final link before it connects to the case. So there is movement in all kind of directions on relatively new watches. I saw it in real life when I met the founder of Monochrome. He has one of his own Czapeks on the wrist, and you could see a little high amount of play. But I'm hearing that Czapek was working on it. They fixed it. So apparently with new watches, this doesn't happen. I know that McLovin has a brand new Czapek. Please keep an eye on that, and please keep us updated how happy you are with the connection to the case itself.
Well, and like I said, just for the fact that Czapek hired Medellin to do some of their dials just says a lot. It means they're setting really, really high standards, obviously.
Yeah, not only that, you only have to look at their movement, and you can see there are true enthusiasts and watch nerds at work.
All right, Jonathan, we'll let you grab your dinner. If you want to hop on later,
I'll be back soon. If you allow me. You have a great show. See you later. Bye-bye, guys.
See you, Jonathan.
Bye.
See you, Jonathan. Clyde, let's pivot to IWC. I'm going to play the video of the Ingenieur. And I don't know if I've actually talked to you about this one. You and I like to troll Archie with the in manure back in the day when he had his Ingenieur. So I was going to get your take on this new release. Are they actually going to show the watch? Like, there we go.
Probably not, because they're trying to avoid it as long as possible. It's like people going to business camera video meetings back in 2020. You want to avoid standing up as much as possible.
Look, for me, it's never really been a brand that I've been super interested in. I respect the Ingenieur. I don't see what everybody sees in this watch, to be totally honest with you. It's not my cup of tea. I do like this dial, this aqua dial. I think it's pretty nice. But in a sea of integrated bracelets and, just so many pieces that can look very similar in an aesthetic, it's what drives somebody to buy the IWC Ingenieur versus.
Yeah, I think they're going back to the roots. They're going back to the original Gerald Gentle design. So.
Yeah, prior to Watches and Wonders, if you actually went to the Ingenieurs,
all over the place.
Yeah, if you went to the page, it was this page is completely different than what it was 2 weeks ago. Where on the Ingenieur line, it was it was circular watches. You would never really be able to necessarily identify it as an Ingenieur, and then now it's completely four watches here. They do look great. Like, don't get me wrong, are they going to be great as a secondary buy? I wouldn't buy them retail. I think they'll probably have a bit of a bump as they're a little bit scarce initially, and then I think they're going to go down after the fact. And I think IWC is going to try to ride this pony for a little bit and milk as much cash as they can get out of it.
Sort of like what Vintonier's big sister Jenny L was saying, and she was basically saying she likes it, but I wouldn't buy it. No, I'd wait until it hits the secondary market.
Got a question from Sam AP. Tant, hi. I just bought a 5212. Didn't get it yet. Do you like yours and the color of the band? Thanks. I actually love mine, Sam. I wear it every single day. It is my work watch, and it's just super light on the wrist, being stainless steel. I think you're going to really enjoy the dial. It's quite stunning in person. It's an opaline dial. The handwritten typography is something else. It's really really unique. Great size of 40 millimeters. And in terms of the band, so I don't mind the calfskin strap. I'm actually purchasing a strap. I believe it's the 5172 blue strap from the chronograph. And just a heads up, Sam, you can actually get the stainless steel deploying buckle off of the 5935, the World Time Chrono that was in steel that came with a buckle. You can actually order that from your authorized dealers. So highly recommend doing that because, it comes with a Tang buckle. I don't know if you like deployants, but that's what I would do. And congratulations on your new Patek Philippe. All right, Clive, back to IWC.
Well, and the thing is, and some people have called it a cash grab. Yeah, I understand it's not even really. I understand it's not even really an in-house movement. Therefore, it's an out-house movement. But they're of course selling it for a premium. But what do you expect them to do, especially if that's their showstopper with?
Look, like really, what has excited anybody about IWC in recent times? Like this, I mean, I understand why they're doing this. This has definitely created a buzz, and it's the intent of what they were doing has really had the effect. But like Rodin 3.0 says, only the Portugueser and a few pilots are worth it from IWC. Maybe budget grand complications secondhand, and that's even if people want to spend. If you're spending, let's say, a budget complications, I don't know, 20 grand, right? Like people spending that kind of money they have the opportunity cost of buying a Rolex and buying other things, and they really, really need to be seeking out either a cheap grand complication or they really, really need to be seeking out IWC, which I don't think a lot of collectors are doing these days.
I think if they have that, I think if I
the burglars wouldn't touch them. Discount says. Discount, you're up late. Nice to see you. And Whole Milk says, I love the colorful Ceratanium pilots from IWC. All right.
Now, on the other hand, if they had them for 95, maybe just like a couple thousand cheaper, I think there'd be so much more buzz. I think people would be breaking down the doors to get them.
Hey, Sam. Yeah, no problem. If you ever want to, just ask any questions about the watch, I'm more than happy to help. I've been enjoying it for a few weeks now, so I can give you the firsthand take, but I know that you're going to get it in a few days. So, yeah, hopefully love to hear your feedback as well. Yeah, look, Clyde, for me, IWC, I've never owned an IWC. I've never wanted to own an IWC. The big pilot never appealed to me. Even when Archie had the Ingenieur, I was like, I don't know, man.
IWC, I want compliments.
It's just, like, I get what they're doing. I like, would I say dislike this watch? No. Would I say I'm so excited to buy this watch? No. And look, I know a lot of people that have a completely opposite opinion about this. They love it, they want to buy it, and hey, man, like buy what you love. I don't have any beef with that. It's just for me, it's just not that sensational. I guess I don't know.
Well, that's because you've also had you've breathed more rarefied air than we have. You've also had an not even a Nautilus and Royals on your wrist.
Right. I mean, but you've owned an AP Navy themes, and you've had an Aquanaut, and so you've had similar high-end Patek Philippe watches, as well as AP watches. So when you see something like this, an Ingenieur, and you see it for, I mean, for here it's 12,000 Swiss francs for the dial that I like, the Aqua dial. That price point, does that price point excite you? Does that make you want to go buy one, or are you looking to buy this at like a heavy discount?
Heavy discount, like Danielle suggested. I think and of course they cheaped down a little bit, of course, because of course they did. It's a tiny bit of a lazy cash grab by IWC.
Yeah, I don't know if it's lazy. It's definitely a cash grab. I don't know if it's lazy, but I think it's.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's the right thing for them.
If they came out with their own movement for the same money or just a little bit more money, I could see that. But slapping in basically a slightly modified ETA, come on.
We got into a pretty heavy debate yesterday, and I'm interested to have this debate with you, Clyde. I'm just going to pull up one of the most hated watches.
And Jen was even, and the funny part is, and Jen, you're going to hate yourself when I say this, but I was actually thinking Piguet Polo, then I looked over, and then Jen's bringing up the same thing as well. So a lot of people almost look at it. Some people say it as just like going back to the original Jared Genter, and some people think it's a Piguet Polo, also ran, or a late to the party.
Higgins says I'm a cheap ass one watch guy. Higgins loves the fact that I send him a daily wrist shot of the Patek, and I say, hey man, this isn't a special occasion watch for me. This is every day.
You're an upscale. Let's face it, you're an upscale Dudley Gaddis. No, actually,
Look,
wait.
You know what's funny? I was sitting there today.
Dudley has 3 watches, so yeah.
I haven't heard from Dudley Gaddis in ages, man. Hopefully he's doing okay and he's still around. But
he's still on.
Okay, cool.
I think he just gets tired of seeing photographs every day with the same 3 watches.
We've got a guest here on the stream. We got Rodent 3.0. He's on mute.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Rodent, how's it going?
Good.
I was looking, interestingly enough, today. I saw a 5320 for sale. This is the perpetual calendar with center seconds, and I thought, you know what? I could flick a couple of pieces and buy it, and one of them would have been the 5212, and I was like, nah. I was like, I steal Patek for me. I'm gonna keep this one. So, the Rolex 1908 perpetual 1908. So, Jen, you were heavy in this discussion yesterday, and we really kind of cut it short, I think, in yesterday's stream. So I wanted to dive back into this around Rolex's strategy with this watch. They discontinued the Cellini and they released this watch. They still somehow really want to go and sell dress watches. Is this the right strategy? Because you and I went through this about the Padalone, about it being a failure in its time, right? Like, is this just Rolex just repeating history and just failing again with a new release?
Well, they don't have to answer to shareholders, so I don't really, or chase quarterly profits. So I think it's just Rolex stubbornness in part.
They technically have to answer, I think, to the members of the charitable foundation. But I'm sure as long as they're handing them bags of money, they're not going to say one.
Well, I think it's more like, what is the strategy here? Like, if you're sitting there in that boardroom and you're releasing a bunch of watches, and some of them are great, right? Titanium Yachtmaster, 40 mil Explorer, the Bubbles Celebration Dial OP. Like, some of them were pretty cool. And then you see this, and somebody's in charge of this lineup to release to the public. It's like, what do you think is going through their minds of, like, why would they discontinue the Cellini and go down this path?
Because it's a little bit easier.
No, I think that there's a degree of stubbornness where this is something that they're not going to compromise. They're going to always have a dress watch in the lineup, and it's never going to be, and it's just going to be a Rolex style of dress watch. And maybe their interpretation of what a Rolex dress watch should be, but it's not the same as what most people want. and they think that's fine.
Right, because they know it doesn't matter. They could lay a turd in the display case, put a little tiny gold coronet on it, and people will buy it.
No, I'm not saying that it's lazy. I'm saying that it's just an unyielding.
I'm saying
it's an unyielding belief that they have, and who's going to change their mind? Nobody's going to change their mind.
Again, they're very greedy, a little lazy with the narrowing sense.
No, it's not lazy at all. This is just the way that they're stubborn.
We got some support from Saad, who says, I'll still support Rodin on being 116138 a better dress watch. I think that Rolex in and of itself is, I think they want to go down this path. They still, like Jin is saying, are stubborn. They want to continue to go down this route. And I think, personally, they're going about it the wrong way. I think they had a smashing hit with the Sky Dweller using their current DNA to bring in a complication that is not necessarily something that Rolex would do in the past, which is the recipe for success. And I used an example yesterday. I know Jin kind of refuted it, but I'll bring it up on the screen again for those to see. Let me just get a good picture for you guys so that you guys can see it. And this one. So we've got a Padalone. This, like Jen said, hey, this piece was never successful or was never popular. And I believe it was just potentially either ahead of its time or just maybe not what Rolex's buyers were buying at the time. They were maybe more into tool pieces. I don't know what it was, but I think in today's day and age, using, and what I say here, what I want everyone to kind of focus on is the Rolex DNA. It's the oyster style case. It's the Jubilee bracelet. Yeah, maybe the dial could be a little bit more contemporary, but I think this DNA, if they used, just like the Sky Dweller uses a certain case that has a lot of Rolex DNA, making a dress piece and even adding complications to that, I think is where they would win out. I don't see this like watch on a leather strap being the proper strategy for them to actually go and take over that market.
Wouldn't that kind of overlap with the Date and some of the full gold pieces that they have, though?
So not necessarily, right? So if you think about it, the Sky Dweller, for example, doesn't overlap with the Date in that sense. The Sky Dweller is its own complication. It has its own purpose. I'll pull up the Sky Dweller here for everybody who wants to see a modern Rolex and doesn't want to stare at a vintage Rolex.
Superficially, but that's like saying the 1908 competes with the Explorer line.
Let me just get the Sky Dweller up here for you guys. So when they released, like, I think that if they wanted to go through complications, if they want to add a perpetual calendar, if they want to add, or even just simple stuff, right? Like, I think it's interesting because certain watches you can spot a mile away, right? A Panerai, if you're across the room, I think Der Stiefel was the one who said he was at a Louis Vuitton boutique and he was wearing his Panerai and it was spotted like literally across the room. And if you're wearing the 1908, people won't know what that is necessarily. But if you put it in some form of design or DNA that looks very similar to this, you'd be able to tell it's a Rolex, number one, because I think a lot of people care about that. And number two, I think this visually appeals to Rolex collectors and it could allow Rolex to continue down this path of whatever they're trying to do with trying to get into dress pieces or more dressy pieces with some complications.
Maybe they're targeting a buyer that doesn't want a Rolex that looks like a Rolex, and who wants, but maybe wants a Rolex.
Sorry, hold on.
That's fine.
You know, they want the anti-Rolex.
So that was a theory that a couple of people had yesterday. Was maybe they're trying to go upstream or eat into some market share from the Trinity brands that, like Vacheron, Patek, and other brands that are selling dress watches today and really tackle that market. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that the 1908 itself is interesting enough to be able to compete in that range. And so I just think if that's what they're trying to do, which I think is unlikely, it's just going about the wrong way. I think they're trying to just like you said, stick to the guns of a dress watch and or continue down that line. They don't want to admit defeat on the the Cellini line failing, and they're just rebooting it with something else. But I think that they're just missing the point of what their collectors want.
The funny thing is that in many ways, the like every collectible Rolex or the most collectible Rolexes are all commercial failures. So there's a limited number of them. The Paul Newman, the Stella Day-Dates, the Patalones. So maybe when the pendulum swings in the future, if it does swing back to dress watches, which some people think is already happening, the Cellini suddenly becomes viewed in retrospect as a much better watch than it was perceived as at the time.
What do you think? I think that
the trouble is people are so irrational and so erratic. Yeah, theoretically, logically, that does make sense. The only variable that you can't take into account is the human equation. And sometimes, everyone talks about artificial intelligence, but I'm starting to think natural stupidity will trump artificial intelligence every time. With
dress pieces, a lot of folks just assume that sport pieces is all the craze, and that's the more ubiquitous they become, the more people are going to seek something a bit different. And what's different? Circular watches, dress, on a leather strap. That those are different. You are seeing, heavy demand for FP Journes and certain Patek Philippe's and Lange. Like, it's not like those are dead. It's not like people aren't buying those pieces. If they were, those would be going for crazy discounts. They'd be sitting forever, right? Like, there is a demand for them. I think this whole groupthink strategy or talk, out in the market around like, oh, it's all sport watches and that's all the craze. Sure, Rolex collectors, if you're a Rolex collector, you're going to go for something that looks like this or a Submariner or in the sports line. You're probably not going to go for something that looks like a 1908. If you're a Patek collector buying Rolex, are you really going to go buy a watch that looks kind of like a Patek Philippe? No, you're going to want to buy a watch that looks like a Rolex. This was my whole argument yesterday, was people were really, there was a lot of, I guess, not positive fanfare on certain Calatravas, the 6007 Calatravas, for example.
Here's what the 1908's all about. Well, we have this. It's all gold. It's a brand new release. They've never released anything like this ever before.
Well, it's interesting because I hear Rolex collectors when they see this watch and they're like,
okay, fuck Rolex collectors. Let's be honest. They're only just a drop in the bucket. Rolex is for Joe the plumber.
So Joe the plumber sees this watch and says, this is not Patek Philippe. And this is not, they're not interested in it. But on the flip side, other collectors and even Rolex collectors themselves look at the 1908 and say, well, that's not a Rolex. That doesn't have Rolex DNA in it. And they hate it. Like, this is the thing. The more anti-design that piece is of the brand, the more disdain people have for it, because they're not interested in revolution. They're interested in evolution because they like the recipe of the current, the current lineup. So we got Geezer who's asking if the FP Journe Chronomet Bleu will get discontinued anytime soon. Yeah. Hey, it's possible. It's possible. That is a very hard. The tantalum case is not very easy to make. The dial is not very easy to make. It is definitely the hyped watch of FP Journe. Well,
it's hard to make. It's also their loss leader, or it's their most plain watch. It's the entry level, so it may only make sense. It only makes sense for them to drop that and say, "Yep."
And Geezer, I'm kicking myself in the pants here for not taking the offer from Don Haynes. Don Haynes got me an allocation at Manfredi years ago. I was very impatient, didn't want to wait the year, could have got it at retail, and that is just the stupidest thing I've ever done. Magpie says it really works on that dial. For example, the Champagne Sky Dweller on gold is unlegible.
I thought it was handing Jen your Patek Philippe, but okay.
Nah, that didn't break. It didn't break. Got Trading Profits in the chat. Hey, Trading Profits says people are reacting to the 6007s like back in the Oyster Perpetual colored dial releases. They will blow up, in his opinion. I think that there's gonna look. I've heard it. This is more mixed emotions, and I think that this is normal when it comes to new releases. People are just not used to certain things, but I think that there are going to be those that are going to, new to the brand. They're going to look at this watch and say, yeah, you know what, this is pretty youthful. I'm not going to buy, for example, these classic 6119s that are out there because it's just a little too classic for me. And young buyers may look at this and say, well, it's too dressy for me. I just can't do it. Somebody who's seen Patek Philippe for a long time and has seen kind of their evolution may prefer this because to them, in their mind, this is what the brand signifies. But that's how I see about Rolex when it comes to the 1908. That people that know Rolex, and there's a lot of people that do in the world, just from you not only just seeing it off of the watch collectors, but also popular culture and just being in the wild with them being very wildly popular in the world, kind of look at the 1908 and be like, that's not a Rolex. It's not what a Rolex says to me. My good friend America 5726 says he doesn't mind it, and a beautiful 5935 in his avatar. America, you should change it to America 5935 because that's it's a beautiful world time chronograph. And let's see any more comments in the chat. I don't know, Clyde, Jen, if you guys had any opinions otherwise to what I've been saying.
Well, I was going to. This isn't your father's Oldsmobile. We saw how well that worked out for Oldsmobile.
It's a good question from Archie. If the 1908 line put in a Sky Dweller complication, which is the annual calendar, would it gain more interest?
Well, I think an annual calendar, maybe not like the command ring, because I think that would just be very weird on a true dress watch. But I mean, maybe part of, because Cellini's are, or I shouldn't say Cellini, the Rolex dress watch, like true dress watch line, is like a very, very, very tiny percentage of their overall production, like less than 1%. So maybe if you think about the number of people who would want something like that, I mean, there's enough people with that much money and who, want something that looks like that with the Rolex branding, I think. And it could be that, there are places in the world where there is a Rolex, you can buy a Rolex. You can't maybe buy some of these more haute brands. So maybe that's part of it as well.
Yeah, but even when you think of annual calendar, right? Like I would think that they wouldn't do this, Anchi, and I don't think they would get a lot of interest because the traditional annual calendar. So we'll go back to the first annual calendar in 1996, the 5035 Patek Philippe. That was a very classic design. It was, if you looked at it today, and I'll pull one up for you guys to see, you would kind of say, well, it's just a bit too traditional for modern tastes. Now, for those that love Patek Philippe and their traditional look, yeah, would love it. But modern collectors aren't buying watches that look like this Roman numerals and everything else. It's not really the aesthetic that even the brand itself is trying to sell. Like I'm going to show you guys, they're trying to spruik stuff like this, where even Patek of itself is changing the layout of the annual calendar completely. This is a completely different layout, for example, than the 5035, and even people will probably say, well, this is a chronograph, so it's a bit more sporty. But if we look at other layouts that they're trying to go with, and I'll use the 5205, which is a very popular layout for the annual calendar, like this is a lot more contemporary, and I think appeals a bit more to a modern buyer. So I don't think that Rolex would go and try to make a traditional annual calendar in the 1908 line. I think that they would probably, I think they've got a hit on their hands when it comes to the Sky Dweller. This is my whole argument is use Rolex DNA, use the oyster case, use some form of a case that's going to be identifiable as a Rolex and build on that. Don't go the other way around and try to build a watch that doesn't look like a Rolex and just stamp your name on it, because again, even though it says Rolex on the dial, you can't see that a mile away and people aren't going to care about that, right? So Clyde Rodent, tell me I'm wildly wrong. Disagree with me, please.
Again, your argument makes sense. What does not make sense is many collectors. I'd almost say most collectors, but that's just a little too condescending even for me.
Trading Profits asks, are you considering getting more modern straps on your 5212? Yeah, Trading Profits. Earlier I mentioned I've actually inquired my AD to get the 5172 strap. I'll pull up the 5172 here for you guys, which is the chronograph, the blue chronograph with syringe hands. So this strap here, which has blue with contrast stitch, and ordering the steel deploying buckle from the 5935, which is, if you saw in America's avatar, it's the World Time chronograph. It's in steel with a salmon dial, and it has a steel deploying buckle. So you can actually order that steel deploying buckle from Patek Philippe, as well as, this strap will fit the 5212. So that's the combination I'm going to go with for my 5212, and I think it's going to be schmicko. Hans, it says we're only talking high-end watches today, boys. Are we talking high-end watches, or are we going to get into Fliegers and shitters and Universal Geneves? We got a very wide expertise on this panel of all kinds of watches, and we've got the second we say high-end. Speaking of high-end, we got Jonathan Quill Higgins on the show.
Hey, thank you very much for the introduction. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Higgins, we're talking about Rolex's choice on the 1908, the design of that watch, and we kind of talked about this a bit yesterday. And Jin was in the chat, and now that I had him on the screen, I was like, maybe we can go down the rabbit hole of design, whether it's the right design for Rolex to use if they're looking to put complications into their pieces, or do you think that they should stick to maybe more of their DNA?
Are you talking more like panettone, or are you talking more about that oyster bubble back rendering that went around to the internet?
You know what? To me, it could be anything, right? It could be them using an oyster case with an oyster bracelet. It could be them using, the design from the Sky Dweller. It could be anything. I just think that it needs to be able to be identifiable as a Rolex just by looking at the case and the bracelet, and then they can do whatever the heck they want with the dial and add complications, right? Because that's essentially what they did with the Sky Dweller, right?
Yeah. Are you not happy how the 1908 is being designed?
I think it's a very strange strategy on behalf of the brand, and we're trying to decipher what the brand is trying to do with that watch, whether they're trying to actually go upstream and get, pull Patek buyers and other buyers of dress watches in, and or if they are just being stubborn and then holding to their guns because they failed over many years with the Cellini.
Difficult question to ask. Actually, personally, I like the 1908 like it is, particularly in white gold with that slate dial. And let's see how the market decides. I don't share that criticism that is so wide at the moment. I applaud them for having the movement slimmed down a little bit, and for trying a slightly different approach without going totally opposite to the Cellini. Not sure if it works. We've had that discussion yesterday. Patek Philippe and Rolex are not known for bold moves with slight exceptions, bubble dial or jigsaw dial. So those companies are moving slow and very carefully.
And does it really even necessarily need to be part of a... I think, it's quite tempting to try to read too much into the Rolex decisions on the Cellini or the dress watches, the 1908, because they barely sell any of them. Patek makes pocket watches. I don't think anyone would say that pocket watches are part of their strategy. It's just something that they keep doing because they've always done it. And I think that there doesn't really need to be a strategy behind the watch. They just refresh it every now and then, and just keeps going.
I wanted to pivot real quick, guys, to a watch that is getting a bit of fanfare. It's not getting a lot of love. Everyone's not I guess oogling over it like they do with the Celebrations OP. The Rolex Explorer 1 40mm. Now, I owned a 39mm Mark II Explorer 1. I wore it when Jin and I met up in the States, and he was wearing the 36mm And I always thought the dimensions of the 39 millimeter just didn't really, the proportions just weren't right on that watch. I couldn't fall in love with it. And when I tried on the 36, which is smaller on my wrist, and I get that, I did feel that it just proportionally that 36 was a lot more balanced. But them going to a 40 millimeter case, do you think this is gonna do you think this is gonna appeal? Do you think this is just gonna become a girl's watch? Like, obviously with the OPs being very popular, like where's really this going to fit in a collector's in a collector's collection here? Like, Jen, you say that this is usually an enthusiast watch, right? Like, we're seeing more and more women obviously wearing the Explorer, but you say that the enthusiast is always going to be after this. But is the enthusiast going to care about a 40, or are they going to care about a 36, or are they just going to completely just ignore this line altogether?
I mean, I think it'll largely be ignored. But I mean, it's a steel Rolex, so people are going to want it. It's 40 mil, so there's going to be more demand than 36. I mean, the 36 is going to attract women and also people who are very particular, very traditional, boring squares like me. And yeah, I mean, it's funny that Rolex always seems to do this, though. I mean, they did it with the Datejust 2, they did it with the Day-Date 2, they did it with the Explorer 39. Like, they always like blow up the case size, and then knowing that the proportions are different, and then people hate it, or people don't hate it, but it becomes very divisive, and then they discontinue it and replace it with something that's a more literal interpretation of the smaller watch that it's trying to, replace or hold alongside. So you would think that they kind of learned by now that, okay, let's just keep the proportions the same, but apparently they keep trying it.
My conspiracy theory is that Rolex went the cheap and lazy way because they already had a 40 millimeter case. So it is not a lot of effort and cost to convert the Explorer to 40 millimeters, because that's basically the old Air King case. I would have hoped that they would go slightly smaller than 39, because the problem is 36 is slightly too small for a man's wrist. So in my opinion, 38 would have been the sweet spot, just to shrink it down a little bit. And you can see it from Tudor, for example, that case sizes are getting smaller, not bigger. So in my opinion, it's the move in the wrong direction.
So to answer Saad's question, it actually is the same movement, Digital Robinson. The 39 and the 40 both were using the 3230 movement. So you're not really getting much more out of this. You're essentially getting just a slightly larger size. Now, different when you see the Super Case 40 Submariner and the 41 Submariner, like, they do fit differently. So,
well, and at least they got rid of the Super Case. It's more classic dimensions, like they have. And to me, the going through the Submariner 40 and the 41, it wasn't really the case, the 1 millimeter larger, but simply.
Well, for me, it was the case on the 39. I just thought it was just not proportional. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't fall in love with it. So, if the 40 somehow
the Rancher is talking about the Submariner, not the
no,
Explorer.
I know. But back to the Explorer, right? Like, I was using it to contrast what could be happening here. Where, even though it sounds trivial from a millimeter change, the case design may be slightly different, and it may be slightly better proportioned.
Let's not remember when Rolex first came out with the 39, they were still using the hands from the 36. So it's like, we got a box or two left over. Screw it. Let's
and
just
the marker.
Well, I mean,
T-Rex hands.
I know that it's very tempting to say that it's lazy, Higgins, and just kind of try to stroke the Rancher's ego a bit. But there could be an argument made that Rolex watches are in such high demand, and if you look at it more, I guess, idealistically, you can say that sharing parts and sharing kind of manufacturing processes could actually help them produce more watches, which will satisfy more customers.
So the Hans Knees and Toes is asking you, Jin, would you update your Explorer 1? And if so, which one? Well,
if I updated it, it would be with the 1016, but which I've thought of, hummed and hawed about for many years. But I'm so attached to mine
that, you know, I could never replace it with anything else because it's mine.
You'll
So,
just wait. You'll just wait till the next airplane eats yours.
well, yeah. I mean, if that was the only time, if I truly lost it, then I would replace it, but not with the same reference because it would just be too emotionally painful. It's the only like material possession that I actually have like a emotional attachment to.
Don't you sometimes have the feeling that it's slightly on the small size?
No, I think it's perfect. I like a very like conservative and traditional look when it comes to watches. So I think it was good enough for men to wear for 50 years. I think it's good enough for me to wear in 2023.
Look, I know that your wrist is different than mine. I have this yellow Oyster Perpetual 36 millimeters. I tried every imaginable trick to convince myself that 36 would be a good size. Fun fact is the dial of the 36 millimeter Explorer is exactly the same size, just like a Submariner 41 millimeter. But it didn't work. To me, it's always it always was unsatisfying, and I've never really worn it because it's just slightly too small. I would love to love the watch, but it didn't work for me.
Higgins, it sounds like a lot of blasphemy being a James Bond fan that you would put the 1016, a coveted legend, on blast like that, calling Ian Fleming's watch.
I'm a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite. You all know that. And there is a dispute if the 1016 was really James Bond's watch. It was without a doubt Ian Fleming's personal watch. But the question is if Ian Fleming really was talking about an Explorer 1016 when he mentioned it in Casino Royale, on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Or is he simply writing about an Oyster Perpetual with an Explorer dial?
Probably yes, or a Submariner with an Explorer dial.
Let's pivot here to Archie's favorite piece, the Burgundy Black Bay on.
I can't believe that Archie is again talking about that. How often did he sell the Black Bay with the Burgundy?
A couple of times. A couple of times he's flicked that watch, and he even had the option. Apparently, one of his friends got access to one of these and offered to sell it to him, and Archie was like humming and hawing about it, and made the decision not to buy it because I think he's being a little bit more prudent with his money today. But he was, he was enamored by this watch yet again. And look, I don't mind it on the Jubilee. I think this looks all right. I don't know. I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure or what have you, but like this is just, I think it looks.
Can we place bets how long he's gonna keep it? Is it a matter of
no,
weeks
he didn't
or
buy
months?
it. He didn't buy it. He didn't buy it. No,
yeah,
I
but
do.
if he gets it,
Clyde, what do you think? How long would Archie keep the watch if he bought a Black Bay Burgundy on a Jubilee?
Oh, tough. It's so hard to tell. And also, any guess would be predicated upon Archie actually telling the truth about buying the watch and selling the watch, which is not exactly a foregone conclusion.
Deja Will Robinson's asking if you own him if he gets one for you, Higgins.
Of course I do.
I wonder what the average ownership tenure of a Black Bay is, considering they're so flipped by everyone, not just Archie.
Yeah, I mean, I've owned probably 5 Black Bays in the past like 10 years, and I've flipped every single one of them. And do I miss it? No, I don't really miss. The only one I kind of miss is the Smiley Edam version I had with the gilt die. I like that one.
It's how the Speedmaster used to be. It's the bus stop watch. You can get off one and on one.
Yeah.
It's pretty much
exactly. So yeah, I'm asking myself which flipping quote is higher, on the Black Bay or on the Speedmaster. And I apologize if I offend you, but I think the Smiley dial just looks ridiculous. People are talking too much into it, in my opinion.
I love the Smiley dial. For me, that's just, I don't know. Is the Tudor Shield dial better? I like the Rose dial. I don't know what it is. It really, the layout was really cool to me. But look, this watch looks really nice. I think it's a pretty cool looking watch. again, would I buy it? Probably not. Could I appreciate it? Absolutely. And Big Al's Golden Watches says 4th time's a charm. So I think Archie will probably buy this watch. I think he'll cave.
I think if he's sitting there at 11 o'clock and like a good enough deal comes across Gumtree or whatever, probably.
So Hans says, why flip? You're minted 10. Just keep them. And the thing is, Hans, is sometimes I find myself not wearing the piece. I have multiple Submariners, and I have, GMT and everything else, and I just don't end up. So I have in the current collection, Hans, I have a Black Bay Blue on a strap, and I'm trying to use it more as a beater watch. Something if I'm doing some, if I'm just doing something I won't want to wear my Patek with or my other Rolexes and what have you, I use it, and it's been very good for that purpose. So I'm trying my best to actually try to keep it in the collection. Yes. But if you have to try, is it really like, that's the part that sucks, right? If you have to try to keep it in the collection, should it really be there?
I'm really looking forward to try on the new Black Bay 54, because that gives me James Bond vibes. And that's probably the watch that I've just been talking about. It's slightly bigger than the Explorer 36, and it gives me vintage vibes. So probably that is something that I'm going to love.
Yeah, boys, let's get into the Black Bay 54. So I really want to get Clyde's take on this too, because on the Black Bay 54, so when the Black Bay came out, the original in the 41, everybody was, it was a popular watch, but there was a lot of people that just didn't like the thickness of the piece. And then they come out with the 58. And I remember when the 58 came out, because the 58 came out at the same time as the Pepsi. And I went to the Rolex event in Toronto, and I was able to try on the Pepsi, which I thought was a hit. And I remember after I had, done the checked out the piece, I went and I was just walking around, and one of the girls that was manning the Tudor lineup, called me over and says you should try on the Black Bay 58, a smaller Black Bay. And I was like, nah, I'm not gonna like that. I like the proportions of the new one or the old one. And I tried it on, and I was like, wow, this actually fits pretty nice. And so everyone was like, yeah, the 58's the perfect size. It's the perfect size. Now we get this 54. Which is even smaller. Like, my question to Clyde, Rodent, and Jonathan is: do we really need to go smaller? Is the Black Bay really so out of proportion on the 58?
I don't know. You see, I want to say I don't like it, but I want to try one on first because I want to keep an open mind. And it could be for a smaller watch, especially for those older of eyesight, that maybe the snowflake hands on a smaller watch just might make hella sense.
Yeah, I don't think that there was anything wrong with the Black Bay 58. In fact, I think it's a great watch. I think what Rolex is doing with Tudor, Rolex as a brand that always moves forward incrementally. And I think Tudor is almost the mirror image. Tudor is the brand that looks backwards for inspiration and brings those pieces to the present. So I think this is a very faithful, very historic, inspired, new release. And I like that they're marketing it as a men's watch, not a ladies' watch, because in the past, like a Yachtmaster 37 is marketed as a ladies' watch. And I think that the kind of reception to this has been very positive from a lot of men, and I think that's great, and I think that it represents like a positive trend, at least for my taste.
Higgins, you're getting James Bond vibes from this. There's no red triangle. Talk to me about the James Bond vibes. There's no Mercedes hands.
It's not the triangle. It's a Submariner dial in the old sense with gilt printing. I love I hate the.
How is that different than the 58?
Because it's smaller. I think the 58 with its size is just slightly on the too large size to give me that vintage vibe. Don't get me wrong. I respect the 58, but I've. Similar like Clyde, I'm keeping an open mind, and I just want to try it on. Maybe I come back and tell you it's too small to give me that vibe, From the pictures and from what is happening at the moment in my head, I'm pretty sure I'm getting vintage vibes, but I have to try it out.
Yeah, this is an interesting comment from Watches 63. It says the Black Bay 58 is almost perfect size for most wrists. Making it slightly thinner is all it needs. And I think it's just shy of like 12 millimeters. And the 54 is just slightly above 11 millimeters. So it's definitely thinner, but it's also dropped 2 millimeters in case diameter as well. So I don't know. I personally don't think the Black Bay needs to get smaller than the 58 at 39 millimeters. I think when you hover around the 37, I mean, people love vintage subs, 4-digit subs that were in the 37 mil? Yeah, of course they do, because it was the originals and they're worth a ton of money. You know, if they were worth nothing, you know, people probably wouldn't give a shit. It's like those 33 millimeter Pateks that nobody cares about, right? They're too small and they're not worth anything. So I think that there's a bit of that involved as well. I don't personally think it needs to be smaller. That's my personal opinion on it, but I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Tudor management had similar discussions, and I applaud them for taking the risk. Now let the market to decide.
So Foreman Colossus says loss of that hideous crown tube is Tudor's best decision. I don't know if he means the
crown guards.
No, not crown guards, but you know where they have the color on the crown, like when you screw in the crown, like just on the tube, it has like a bit of color. So the old ones used to have, like, if it was a burgundy, it had red. You know, if it was a blue, it had blue on it. Anyways, in the 58, they don't have that, right? My blue 58 doesn't have the coloring, you know, on the crown tube. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this is unique to the 54. And again, to me, this is not really an interesting release. I think, like Jin said, maybe for a buyer that has a smaller wrist, sure, you know, they'll be able to now wear a Black Bay. It opens the market up. But I think that they already achieved that. I don't think Jin would have a problem wearing a Black Bay 58. Man from Sofia says Rolex in the 60s made only 200,000 watches. In the 70s, 300,000. And today, Clyde, how many watches does Rolex produce a year?
I've heard anywhere from 750,000 to 1 million.
Man from Sofia says now is going to be 2 million in 2030.
Yeah, I think that's not going to happen.
I don't know. They are building a new factory.
I know, but yeah, 2 million seems to be a little bit on the high side.
Not if 1 million will go to China and stay there every year.
Well, it's been doing that for a while anyway. I think, yeah, the idea that, you know, if there was 300,000 in the 70s, and you compare the explosion in the global middle class since then, I mean, 1 million is really nothing. Demand is pretty high, and
Bright Blue Common, a good friend of the channel, says 75% of them are probably Datejust. Probably so.
Well, you know, Marky and I well, actually, I think all of us are Datejust admirers right now. But Mark and I were talking yesterday, and I was saying, oh well, you know, I'm just trying to get a Datejust. Surely it can't be that hard. And we're both on the list for a Datejust, multiple, but then we were like, no, of course that's ridiculous. Datejusts are literally the most popular watch, and there's a lot of people who walk in wanting a Datejust as their only Rolex. So it's not, you know, it's a little misguided to think that.
What's the most identifiable Rolex, in my opinion, is the Datejust, with the Submariner and the Day-Date included kind of in that group. But you remember a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, before even the Datejust went like really hard to get, Rolex ADs used to be called Datejusts R Us. You know, like that's all you could get there. Everyone was complaining about you couldn't get sport models, but it became Datejusts R Us. We got a super chat here from a very generous donor to the channel. America 5726, $2, says precious metal, only thing missing from the Antarctic. Yes, I think McLovin mentioned earlier that later this year they're going to be doing it in rose gold, and I think that's going to be awesome. I think that watch is going to look great in it. So
I disagree with America. I think they will launch very soon a chronograph based on the Antarctic as well.
Sure, but I don't think that that's mutually exclusive to his comment. I think that the Antarctic could come out in its standard, you know, 3-hand format in precious metal, and I mean, dude, this watch would look schmicko with like rose gold. Like, I don't know. It would be a heavy hitter, I think, with rose gold. I think it'd be a beautiful watch. As much as Jonathan knows, I like to beat up Czapek from their storied history or what they try to tell. I do like their watches a lot. I do love what they're doing, and I would personally own one of these watches. Probably either the ice blue or, like my good friend George Vargas has the Frozen Star, which he's very lucky to have gotten.
Have you seen one in real life on your wrist?
No, but I haven't seen one in real life. I've heard from you that they're amazing in real life. So I'm gonna if I don't like it, I'm just gonna blame you.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to take that burden.
Do you think that this in rose gold would be a hit, or do you think they don't need to go rose gold and they should kind of continue down the line of steel pieces for the Antarctic specifically?
I think it's all a question of managing quantity. If they are flooding the market with stainless steel, then there will be not enough demand for rose gold. So I think it's just a matter of doing what AP and Vacheron have been doing. They scaled down the steel models to a degree where people are moving to the solid gold pieces. I couldn't believe that would happen with Rolex, but apparently it does. So I would think that Czapek is trying to pull the same stunt here.
It's kind of like the Candyman in the white Corvette. The first taste is almost free.
Well, and this is really gonna I'm gonna start getting a bit controversial here because we have a couple of good friends in the chat. We got Bright Blue, we've got McLovin, we've got America, and obviously we got some Czapek fans here in the group on the panel. So I'm gonna ask the question: like, is Czapek getting typecast to as the Antarctic? Is that when you think Czapek, that's the only watch you think of? I'm scrolling down here through their lineup, and the Key de Bell, like this has the fleur de lis hands. Like, does this appeal to the Czapek buyer or Czapek buyers trying to get these, or is everybody literally just beelining to the Antarctic, just like we're beelining to the Royal Oak, just like we're beelining to the Laureato or the Ingenieur? Like, has it become the one trick pony brand, or is it moving towards a one trick pony brand?
Again, that's as much as consumers, which are not, let's face it, we're not the most rational people. I mean, we just look at all us being on here raising money for a Minotaur, and that's not really rational.
Jonathan, you knew I was going to drop a controversial question. Is Czapek becoming is it going? I don't think they're a one-trick pony yet, but are they? If they go so heavy into
becoming the next Movado,
or the next AP, or the next, you know what I mean? Like, is Czapek on the way there? Like, does anybody care about these other pieces?
Actually, yes and no. The Rattrapante I'm hearing is well being sold. The other one not so much. So I would agree that at the moment Czapek is more or less a one-trick pony. But let's see how they are able to capitalize from that success. And the Antarctic is a watch that they can be proud of. Again, that movement is just gorgeous, and so it's a well-deserved success for them.
Is it? Well, and it could be just simply be one model is just so successful, just capture the public's imagination that it's shaping the public's perception of the entire brand.
I love this Abyss. This dial looks pretty cool.
The blue?
Yeah, I like this.
Only done in very small quantities as well.
Very nice. Should I pull this picture up here? A wrist shot. Ooh, look at this, man. Beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Sometimes a dial, just a simple dial in hands, could just make all the difference in the world.
Breguet Blue comment says he thinks I'm onto something. It's becoming such a dominant model for them, it seems. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I think the brand is still very young, and for them to have a piece that's hitting the market so hard and is getting everybody talking, is getting everybody excited, is a huge success for them.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I would own one of these. I just wonder if it's like, is it going to be a one and done? When you're buying a Czapek, it's just the Antarctic and then you move on, right? And people are going to want, and as they become more scarce, are people going to want to buy the other pieces that are out there to potentially get an Antarctic, just like you see with the Royal Oak and whatnot, right? America says it's not a problem yet. I think they're on a great path. And look, they can easily pivot and come up with something else. Like, I'm not saying that that's not possible. I just think that, like, it's the one watch that everybody talks about. And, you know, this is gonna kind of go back into Archie's question here. And I think, Jonathan, you're qualified to answer this one. Czapek or Moser? And so is Clyde, because I think Clyde owns a Moser as well. Czapek or Moser?
I think he's talking about the Streamliner as an alternative.
Maybe I'll bring up the Streamliner.
And like always, I'm trying to avoid the question. I would say 3-hander go Antarctic, but the Streamliner Chrono is a total different animal, and that is my personal favorite. And I would drop a Czapek Antarctic for a Streamliner chronograph.
So America says the Czapek dress watch with the aventurine dial and chronograph is absolutely
it's gorgeous.
stunning.
It's gorgeous, but it's sold out.
Well, not only that, right? It's also opportunity cost, America, right? Like, when we're looking at pieces, is it going to be, are you going to buy a Czapek dress watch with an aventurine dial, or are you going to buy another brand with an aventurine dial? Now, there's lots of them that have stunning.
Are you going to walk into the dealer across the street and get, I don't know, look at Lange or Patek Philippe or whatnot?
And that's the big thing, right? Because as they market, as they go to market, it's going to be, you know, I think that, like, they have a hit on their hands. It's going to be really the test of time around, are people going to identify with other pieces in the brand, or is it just going to be that? America says $2 difference between Moser and Czapek. Moser is ugly. Yes. Look, the Streamliner, I don't know. I'm being told by Jonathan and Swiss I need to put this on the wrist before I hold judgment on it. On pictures, yeah, I could definitely say that the Antarctic looks much cooler. But I'm going to pull up the Streamliner flyback chronograph.
Yeah, but you're a traditionalist. You're always just fishing around Patek, let's be honest. So you're not the most adventurous person. But
Jonathan, you still haven't told me what you had for dinner. If you're gonna, you refuse to tell me what you had for dinner. So if you're gonna tell me, oh, I had, like, you know, just boiled potatoes and stuff, we'll talk about who's adventurous.
Cabbage.
Should I tell you what I had for dinner?
Yes, I want to know, please.
I had fish with a mustard sauce, and I had cauliflower gratin, and Mrs. Higgins, what is the word for scallops? We had.
Ooh, that sounds very good.
nice.
That's nice. Sounds like a good dinner. I'm surprised you didn't tell me earlier. Like,
yeah,
wouldn't answer the question.
Well, I was afraid that you were passing by and I'm getting less of it. So
no. We got huge erection asking us for the super chat. I'm gonna pull this up. The Guinness. Just give me a second here. Huge erection. I got the Guinness up on the screen for everybody. And his super chat says $2. Thoughts on the Rolex Guinness? I think it's fire. Rolex Guinness, boys. I got them up on the screen. What do you guys think? Don't all talk at once.
I mean,
I don't want to dominate
I think possibly, yeah. Wait, sorry. You said not to talk all at once? I misunderstood.
Go ahead. Fire away, boys. All right, huge erection. These guys are all shy today, so
Jim,
I will say.
Jim, you wanted to say something, and I
go ahead,
interrupted.
Jen. Go ahead.
No, the only thing I have to say is that it's a GMT. It's just a GMT. I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that I don't like it, but I mean, I don't think there's really too much to think about. If you like the GMT, you'll like it. If you didn't like the GMT, you won't like it.
Who doesn't like the GMT?
Well, I don't like subs. And
I think
like,
I think that's a bit of bullshit. I think
no, I don't like sub.
You don't like any sub that's out there. And never like the sub.
I like
5513 meters first. I know you do.
Yes, I like the 5513. Gilt.
So look, I think the Guinness.
I'll be honest.
Really...
I'm not a fan of subs either. It's almost sacrilegious to say it. Almost. By God, it almost feels kind of good saying it.
Watch the 63. If your Guinness is dark gray, don't drink it. Yes.
Good advice.
Look, everybody was. A lot of people were like, they were not happy that the black was gone. I mean, this is not a black, but it's close. And
yeah, very close.
I think it's going to satisfy some people's itches.
Wouldn't it be great to have the same combo on the bezel on the steel model? Other than that, I'm on the record of being a hater of the Jubilee bracelet on any professional model. I think a GMT Master Submariner belongs on an Oyster bracelet, not on a Jubilee. That is the only thing that I have to criticize.
And again, coming from a vintage perspective, though, you realize that, of course, it was pretty much mix and match. There wasn't such a strict delineation back in the day until recently.
That may apply for the American market. In Europe, it was very different. But has somebody noticed those inlays that they appear to be very polished and very reflected? Of course, it could be the rendering, but it looks to me that Rolex changed slightly the formula of PVD coating them. Because usually they look a little bit grainy. From that video, they look almost polished.
Bright Blue Comment says he's a fan of the two-tone, whereas everyone likes the gold. I'll say an interesting fact for you, Bright Blue Comment. When it was the root beer, when that came out, I was there at the launch for those, and I actually preferred the full gold over the two-tone that everybody loves. So, but in this one, I do like the all gold. So I'll kind of support everybody else. Just one comment here for Timepiece Fund. Timepiece Fund, if this is your first time tuning into one of my streams, like we like to engage the chat. Jonathan I think it annoys him that I don't come with a topic and I just kind of freestyle because, if you're a watch enthusiast, I look at these streams as us having, a fireside chat. The boys are there. We're having a drink. We're just shooting the shit as we would be just talking watches amongst enthusiasts. And that's why I like to engage the chat. So if you have questions, obviously, if you want to super chat to support Archie, that is appreciated. But, we definitely want to engage everybody. And Timepiece Fund, if you want to join, absolutely. I've dropped the link and you're more than welcome to join the panel. So Guinness, guys, is it a hit or is it a miss for everybody here?
Wireless and lightning cable.
All right, Clyde's doing some IT work. I'm going to say it's a hit. I love it.
Yeah.
Everyone else doesn't want to chime in. Jonathan's a hater.
Indifferent. It's just like, okay, it's a tweak of the root beer. I mean,
it is a new bezel insert on a GMT Master, so it's automatically a hit now. So
let's do some learning here because America says he's here to learn.
No. Wrong channel.
I'll be a little bit more enthusiastic than our favorite professor, Bill Sanders. So I want to pull up for you, Jonathan, because I know that you put this on your show yesterday, and I was in and out of the show, and I was in and out, like I was watching, but then I was also on the road. Hey, Timepiece Fund, we got him now on the panel. Appreciate you joining.
I'm gonna have to drop out. I need to talk with my watchsmith, which you should always do on a regular basis. So be well.
Mr. Rancho, you should stay on. Hi, panel. How are you? I came on because I saw just the cool guys here. I saw Tanzil, I saw Rancho, I saw Higgins, I saw Saad on the chat.
Yeah.
I didn't think you'd hang out.
I thought this is. Wait, are you Mr. Sexy?
No.
Okay, it sounds like Mr. Sexy.
He's a Timepiece Fund. You don't know the Timepiece Fund?
No, I can't recall it offhand. I mean, Mr. GMT.
Timepiece Fund goes hard after Archie, but
well, in that case,
kind of interesting.
Hey, we got our good friend George Varhees in the chat. $10. Great show, gents. Love the wash talk. Great crew in the chats. Yes, absolutely, George. We appreciate you tuning in, and we got all the boys here. We're talking controversial topics. I'm asking if Czapek is a one-trick pony. There's a lot of controversy here, but hey, we love open debate here. Timepiece Fund. Where do you want to go? Like, you're new to the panel. What do you want to see? What do you want to talk about? Let's have you drive a bit of where we're going to go for our next topic or our next one.
Hey, I have been out of the loop for almost 6 months now. But I got back in literally about a month ago, 4 weeks ago. So wife and kids are away in vacation this week. I'm with the dog, so I figured I've got the liberty, and there's no swearing in this channel. This particularly when Tan's running the show. So
no. My shows we only talk watches. We just engage. And look, I always tell everybody I want people to come on with differing opinions I don't like. Look, if it's all just us circle jerking Rolex, it's not interesting. There's
Correct.
many other channels that do that. We want to have, Higgins has very controversial views on Patek. I can ask controversial views on Czapek, and all of us. I think that makes it interesting, is seeing other people's opinions that may not just be what you just hear about, like, oh, buy a Steel Sports Rolex, right?
So, I have been trying to build a Super 30, my Super 30, for the last 3 years. And I'm trying to stick with one per brand, and starting with the Holy Trinity. And I've taken all the advice from all you good folks here on the channel, specifically, on ArchieLuxury channel. And I think I'm trying to, the last piece there, the holdout is Lange. I'm trying to get the 1815. When that is done, happy to hop on, when you guys are on ArchieLuxury to talk about the Super 30, one per brand.
Ooh, that is a huge
I have a
challenge.
question to Timepiece Fund. So you followed the Pontiff's advice. Now you're ending up with the lady size, the Holy Trinity watches, or what?
He said an
what does that
18.
mean?
He said an 1815 is not a lady. Come
No,
on.
no, no. That is what he's going to get. But he mentioned about buying the Holy Trinity. So I'm afraid we're now having another Patek Philippe 37
No.
millimeter.
We're pivoting. Timepiece Fund. His next watch is an 1815. A favorite to many of us. Timepiece Fund. Are you going for what 1815? Are you going for the chronograph? What are you looking to get?
Oh, 1815, just regular, just the way you showed it, right?
Beautiful.
So on the Patek, I just was offered the 6119R.
Yep.
So I think that's 39 or 38.
It's 39.
Yeah. So I have that, and I was offered, and I'm trying to get this all through ADs, right? That's why it has taken me this long. On the Vacheron, I was offered the dual time black dial.
Beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
And we all are sort of Rolex fanboys in one way or the other. But on Rolex, I could probably put anything I want. But I decided to put GMT Jubilee, the original GMT.
Yep.
Yeah. So, happy to have you good folks comment on it. I can just kind of go through the list. And there are some, I had to put some questionable on the list because it's hard to get to Super 30 with the Archie approved type of watches, right?
Let's play the game here, Timepiece. No, boys. Let's play the game. So I'm gonna get this first super chat, which is very generous.
Gentlemen, I must go. Thanks for having me on.
Okay.
See you, Clivers. Appreciate it.
Good luck. I'll watch this later on.
Let me get this super chat from Angie before we get into a Timepiece Fund. $20, very, very generous, Angie. Thank you so much. Love the well-rounded watch talk. Lately, there's been some great discussions. Yeah, like I'm trying to pivot the channel as much as I can. Moving Archie's views is like, it's an immovable object sometimes. So, we try to get a couple of different panelists. And if anybody wants to join, I'm dropping the link for anybody who's maybe new and just wants to talk different things with us. We're happy to have it. Timepiece Fund. Let's go through some of the Super 30. So Patek Philippe, you were talking about the 6119, right?
If you want to bring it up, I'll give you the reference numbers. Yeah, that would be
absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. Jonathan knows I can take a bit of a challenge by running the stream while pulling stuff up here, but I'll pull up the 61. Did you get the rose gold or the black? Or the
rose gold. Yeah, 6109R. R is the rose gold.
The rose gold. All right. Here's the rose gold.
Even I knew that.
No, I just wasn't sure if it was the R or if it was the G. If you got the white gold one.
Okay, that's one. The next one is we talked about the 1815. I don't have that yet, but I'm trying to, I'm trying not to get that from AD. Archie keeps telling me that that's probably better bought in the secondary. I've never, tell you the truth, I don't like buying from secondary. I like buying from AD, so I'll take advice.
And maybe we'll slow down here because Timepiece Fund, because you this isn't one you own yet, because 6119 it seems like you've pulled the trigger, you're good. So Jonathan, the strategy, which I'm sure you're very well aware of, is Archie's old one watch per brand. You kind of either pick the icon or you pick one that appeals to you. And so for Timepiece Fund, this is the icon, the 1815.
The other one, the one with the dual register, with the power reserve. Yeah.
Power reserve.
The up and
The
down.
up down. The up down. Yeah.
The up and down. Sorry about that. Yeah.
The up down.
That's the one that speaks to me. And I'm trying to acquire the watch that I emotionally connects with me a little bit as well.
So first question I'm going to ask, which I think is everyone's kind of thinking, is if you're thinking your one watch of Lange, everyone would assume that folks would go for the Lange 1. Now, the
Correct.
1815 has been very popular, whether in the up-down, format here or in the chronograph format. So what has got you? Is it just visually more appealing to you? What is really driving you away from the Lange 1 into this?
Great question. It's because part of the Super 30, I've got the Glashütte Panomatic, which has the same visual. So it was either drop, Glashütte original, and then get Lange 1, or get 1815 up and down, and be able to add Glashütte original Panomatic as well. That was the reason.
Jonathan, would you go the other way around? Would you try to get the Lange 1 and get something else from Glashütte? I know that you got the CQ in Glashütte.
I personally would do that, because the Lange 1 is the super icon, and it is the epitome of the brand. I understand the dilemma that you have with the Panomatic. If possible, I would get rid of the Glashütte Original and move to a different model and go for Lange 1. Because it's just an iconic piece. And so you mentioned the 1815 before, and I was afraid you're talking about the small seconds, and that is just too similar to the Patek you just mentioned. So I would
that's why I went dual register, right? The one with the power reserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Patek's just a simple manual wind, right? Hobnail bezel. You're not. It's a very basic watch, right? The up down. At least you have the power reserve. It's different. I could see that being different enough, right? So what do you say? This is Panomatic Lunar up on the screen.
The one I had is the blue one.
The blue one? Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me pull up the blue one here.
Yeah.
Of course. So let's pull up the blue one here. Beautiful watch, man.
Yes,
I really like
that's
this.
the one I have. So if Mr. Higgins is telling me to drop this.
No, I'm not telling you to drop or to buy. I'm only giving you my opinion, but I'm just a random guy on the internet. So what is important is how you feel. I just can tell you how
honestly,
I feel.
I would go his route. Like I think that with him having this watch, he's seeing enough. He's seeing the similarity enough in the Lange 1 to this, and he wants to own a GO as well. And I'm not a huge fan of the CQ, Jonathan, to be totally honest with you. It's cool, but it's not what I envision Glashütte Original to represent to me. But this does. So if he wants to get along an 18, I would, for me, I would definitely be going 1815, either up, down, or chronograph. I think they're beautiful watches. And yeah, Timepiece Fund, I would agree with you.
It makes sense from his perspective when he says he's happy with a Panomatic. It's a beautiful watch, and I agree. Getting a Lange 1 on top of that doesn't really make sense, because then you're ending up with two very similar watches.
Right, Jonathan. We're playing the game, right? He's building the Super 30. He's got to have enough variation in it for it to make sense, and he's challenging himself to only get one per brand. So, yeah, I think in your strategy, Timepiece Fund, you're on the right track for this. So,
okay, great. And look, as we all can always get another watch, so that the Lange 1's there as well. But first, I really want to focus on the 30 watches I can wear and I want to wear. A day, a watch a day, so to speak, if you will. So another one is the part of the Trinity is the overseas dual time. You need a reference number. It's a black dial with the red tip on the time zone and the AM PM.
It's steel?
In steel. Reference is 7900V.
Is this the one?
Yes, that's the one.
Jonathan, you need to give me admin rights to the Swiss and John show. We're going at lightning pace here.
Oh,
Jonathan would have spent on his show about 30 minutes trying to
Hey, come on! I'm not that bad. I don't suck that much. I know that I'm terrible with that, but not that bad.
All right,
but I'm happy now to have the new admin, and I hope that you're going to be a great help and improve my channel.
Jonathan has a lot of knowledge, and I feel it's a bit of a disservice when he has to fumble around with finding references, and pulling up stuff. So I said, hey, maybe I'll pull up stuff, and you can enjoy more of the show and stuff like that. So we got the Vacheron Constantin Overseas, which is Timepiece Fund's choice. And what was your logic on getting this particular one?
So I, by the way, I would like to, Rodin 30 tin, right? No,
Jin.
Sorry, yeah, Jin to chime in as well. So I looked at what Vacheron had to offer, and I looked at historic. I looked at the I forget the model number, but the one, the square that has, when you're driving,
the 1921 history?
Yeah, it's a unique looking watch. It just didn't connect with me emotionally. And then I looked at traditional that looked similar to Patek, because I started with Patek, right? On Patek, Aquanaut and all these things were just sort of, you have to wait a long. I mean, for 6119R, I had to wait 2 years. 18 months to be exact. And I didn't want to buy in the gray market. So if you start there, and traditional, it's going to look the same. You know what I'm saying? So I said, okay, if that, and the hobnail really spoke to me. I was offered 522, the one with the date, 5119.
The 5226, the one with the textured charcoal dial.
No, the one with the date on it. It's a Calatrava with the date on it.
5227.
Yeah. So I was offered that. I declined that because the date, it was just like to me. And but the hobnail, when it came out, I saw it. I just like I could grab it. I could feel it.
Everyone's asking if you're the guy who super chats all the awful comments. I think he means Timepiece Esquire.
Right.
Timepiece Fund is a different guy.
No, I'm the guy with the pool.
Yeah. He's a good guy. So those are both good watches right now. And I think that for me, if I was picking a classic Calatrava right now, I wouldn't take the 5227. I would go with the 6119 as well.
And then I started there. So, and then when it came to Vacheron, the historic spoke to me, and he was, that kid, the watch cardinal who went to Luxury Bazaar. He was when everybody was, happy-go-lucky one team, and they were talking, and I looked at it, and I was almost close, and the AD said, "Well, you want this? Happy to offer this to you." So it was either this or historic, and obviously I had to pick this one just from what I heard, on you guys, you experts telling me. So that's how this happened.
Well, look, an overseas is always a good choice, right? It's a classic. It's a watch that most people, when they say Vacheron Constantin, they're like overseas right away. And so obviously within the overseas, you've got a whole breadth of different variations, which here you have a travel time, AM, PM indicator with date. And so it's, I would say it's not a conventional choice. But again, do you really want to be everybody else with a 4500V and a blue dial, right? That's what everybody has, or everybody is gravitating towards.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Timepiece Funds owns a Royal Oak, a 300.
No, I don't. I don't. And that's
okay.
Yeah, so that's on the list. AD will come through. I just don't know when. I know they will. It just because I have some purchase history.
Okay,
it will come. It's just that
So Timepiece Fund. I apologize. I also mix you up with Timepiece Esquire. Now I know exactly who you are. You're the guy with the cigar and the swimming pool and the big Seiko collection.
Yeah, man.
What happened with your Seiko collection?
No, I do. I have a thing called Seiko 64, and which we can talk separately on the dungeon.
Beautiful. Like Jonathan, I think that this is a great choice. It's a different overseas than everybody else has. It's got a functional complication on it. I actually like this on this. This I think it's a rubberized strap, which is really
my favorite overseas.
Yeah, this is really nice. And yeah,
it was a white was offered to me. It just looked too. And the white color also makes it a little bit bigger. I've got a 6.5-inch wrist, so it's and also the blue one. They told me, you got to go to the boutique, and the boutique guy could have offered me, but I looked at it and there was no. It was just, again, it was like bland, like the white dial. The blue is great; it pops, but there was no, there was no character to it. This 2 red pip on the tip, I really felt it had a character. And then because the black dial had made the watch look a little smaller visually, and it kind of looked nice on the wrist, so I pulled the trigger.
No, great choice. I think that like my challenge, Jonathan, in Timepiece Fund was, having the Royal Oak at the time. I was like, well, do I need an overseas? What Vacheron do I buy? A lot of the collection hasn't been really appealing to me. I do like the overseas and the blue dial, but like, why just get a basic 3-hander? When I have the Royal Oak in a basic 3-hander. So it was so I this is why for me, if I'm building a one watch per brand, it's either the choice of taking a complication on the Royal Oak, where I would probably stay a bit more traditional, or taking a complication on the Vacheron, whether it's a chronograph or a travel time or what have you. And that's probably the way I would go. So I think that you've gone on the right path in the way I would do it in strategizing. Okay, I want an overseas, but if you're now, maybe we can talk about Royal Oak in a second. What will be then your thought process now that you've picked this about going to the Royal Oak? I don't know, John, if you want to add any more on the Vacheron piece your side.
No, I said my piece about the Vacheron. What I'm asking myself is, and with all respect to Timepiece Fund, and he's welcome to open that question, to reply to that question honestly. So you're collecting significant pieces. I understand that that are standing for each brand. What I personally am missing a little bit are the heavy hitters, the high horology things, and maybe your first purchase of Lange is an opportunity to get a taste of the very high horology a little bit, instead of going just to the well-known or the normal models of each brand.
Yeah, great, and I appreciate that comment and a great input. Just full disclosure, I have 200 plus watches, but I don't wear them all. It's part of asset reallocation, so to speak, and of them, I'm trying to just. I mean, it's 20 Rolexes, so on and so forth, right? And I can. Because I have purchase history, I can get more Rolexes. That's not the point. The point here is what 30 watches I want to wear that emotionally connects with me. And, something that, of course, we all crave for validation from the community. That's part of it. But I also want to wear it. And if something I want to wear perhaps it's not validated by the community, that's okay. I can always purchase part of the fund and just park it away in the safe. But
I was going to say we have Rodin 3.0 back, so Jen, you definitely chime in. Definitely chime in here as well. Go ahead, Timepiece Fund. I apologize.
And Timepiece Fund said no swearing. Fuck you.
Grand Seiko, I have 30 Grand Seikos. Yeah, and Jim hates Grand Seiko, and he'll have plenty of opportunity to throw dirt at me, which I will take it because he knows about watches. I don't.
No, but the Timepiece Fund, just for full disclosure, I'm on the record of owning a $57,000 Grand Seiko, and people are pulling my leg.
Oh, I have 30. Like I said, we can. But right now, I just want to.
Yeah, we can do an entire show about Seiko and Grand Seiko.
And I know, and I will PayPal Archie $100 just for Tan's time, and I'll mention it to Archie.
Hey, my time's free. It's I'm here to have fun. I'm here to have fun.
One of the largest supporter, if not the largest. I know the story, and wonderful. It's just amazing. Nothing makes me happy. I said, all Archie's enemies are my enemies. All Archie's friends are my friends, and all former Archie's enemies who become Archie's friends are my friends. If Archie forgives, I forgive. I have no animosity. I just want Archie to succeed, and I think that's where Tan and Jin is coming from, and that's why I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate the kind words. Let's I don't know if you guys are if you don't mind, Timepiece Fund, if we go to AP.
Sure.
Do you have an AP yet, or
No,
are
and
you
I told I told the AD I want the black one, the 1500,
a
the speed,
500 or the 510? There's the
not the super thin, just the regular Royal Oak black dial, not the gray dial, not the white dial, not the blue dial, the black dial. That's what I
black
want.
dial, black dial. Yeah, the reason I was asking was there's the so they have an outgoing model, right? They have the 15500, which is still on the catalog here. Just I guess they still probably have some in the AD. So this is the 15500. Seems like they've removed everything else but the blue dial, and the difference mainly is is going to be the dot. There's some bracelet and case back differences as well, but you can identify a 15500 pretty easily by the AP applied logo here. But the new model is the 15510, which I'll show you here in a second, which I believe is what you're most likely referring to. And that is with a black dial. Here we go. And you can see here, obviously, that there's no applied AP logo anymore. And yeah, why the black dial specifically? What's kind of got you gravitated
Yeah,
towards a black dial?
yeah, the because I have so many blues, and I was trying to get. I mean, blues great too, and blues slightly more wait time. It seems like from how the AD explained to me, gray just didn't connect with me. Gray was too gray, white was too white,
Hmm.
and as black. I got 6.5 inch wrist, so any darker by default is good. So that's the reason.
And you're picking the full size. You're picking the 41 mil, or you're not picking the
41,
550.
41 mil, 41 mil.
That's an interesting choice for a 6.5 because that watch, wears like a 43,
Yeah,
and
when I wear a watch, I wear it for me. You come to an age where only opinions from the panel matters, not the punter.
yeah, look, I don't have any reservations of picking the 510 or the 550. Like, it's whatever. The good thing about AP is like even the smaller sizes, like the 550, which is a 37 millimeter watch, I believe, fits like a 39. The 41 fits like a 43. So there's really a Royal Oak for everybody. And in this configuration, there's also a green dial. I don't know if you like the green. It's super hard to
No,
get.
no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it didn't speak to me. You know what? The green dial that spoke to me was actually Omega Speedmaster,
This is the
Seamaster.
Seamaster. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
but
good.
I have the blue. I just didn't want to get another one just for the sake of it.
I'm gonna get to this question here. For Richard Greenberg, is there any authorized AP dealers in Canada? There's an authorized service center in Canada, but no AP dealers. A friend of mine actually reached out to the head of AP for North America and asked when Canada was going to get, a boutique, and the response he got was, "Why don't you just go to New York?" So I don't envision AP. Well, I'm sure they will put a boutique in Canada, but nothing in the near future that what I've seen.
So
Um,
quick comment on bright blue comment. Yeah, the 30 Grand Seikos I have are like limited pieces if they are less than 500 or part of a set like the Four Seasons with their own special box. That if they were offered to me by the 80s in that fashion, I picked them up, and that's how it kind of got to 30. So I put a stop to it, and I'm focusing on Rolex, right? Hey, by the way, I have all the watches I want to wear except for the Lange that I'm trying to, acquire, and AP. AP, I didn't put AP part of the Super 30 because AP was going to take a little longer, and I wanted to really announce it. So to answer bright blue comment, yes, not all, no, please don't. Don't. The only reason I said the word asset allocation was because you could, if you wanted to, use watches as asset allocation, but you got to be extremely careful. Extremely careful. Watches are not investments. They're like jewelry you buy for your own personal happiness. And there are some pieces, if you spend the time, just like you were, spending time to find the right stock. It's kind of like that. And listening to Mr. Higgins, and Tan and Archie is a good way to start.
I think that this is probably one that you're not going to seek out at an AD. It's going to be quite difficult to get if you don't have unless you're AD, because I know obviously AP's gone to a boutique
Boutique
model.
only, right. Yeah. So in New York, they opened their own boutique. So for whatever it's worth, I do make an effort to let them know why I'm here, right? So they know that it's a watch enthusiast, that know that I've been collecting watches for some time, and here are the pieces I have, and a little bit of sob story if it helps. Look, the piece that's missing is you. Are you going to complete me or not?
Yeah, it's a good approach, and look, even on the secondary market, I mean, for 510, you're probably looking in the low to mid 40s US. If you're looking at a 500, which is the generation before this one, you're probably in the low to mid 30s. So in your budget, I'm sure you'll be able to get the piece. They are quite available if you go on the secondary market. Black dials do come up, silver dials do come up. Blue dials, not as much. Green dials, there is one for sale, I know, on Moda, I believe, on a green dial. And, it's really going to be whatever you choose. And you like the black one. I have a friend who has a black dial 500, loves it, seen it in person, beautiful. And yeah, I don't think you could go wrong with this choice. Where to next, Timepiece Fund? What's another brand that your one wants to
Breguet.
choose?
So let's go
Let's
Breguet.
go Breguet. All right.
Yeah, this is the one Archie recommended. It's so the reference number is 3810ST slash
3810
ST/92/9ZU. It's a Type 21. It's one of the modern Type 21 with a bluish gray, black, whatever you want to call it.
All right, let's pull her up. Let me know if I got the right one.
Yeah, you got it. Yep, that's it.
Type 21, the famous ArchieLuxury Type 20. That was one of his favorite Bregsters, and I'm seeing a lot of folk kind of move away from the Type 20, Type 21 styles into more of the classic style Breguets. I'm not seeing a lot of folks buying the Marines, for example, but this is a good choice for me. If you're I mean, look, you have a lot. You're picking a lot of dress watches as well from your Patek and your Lange and whatnot, and maybe you don't want to go dressy piece in your Breguet, and you want something a bit more sporty. So I think the chronograph is definitely a good choice. Higgins, would you have picked the Type 21? I know that I'm sure you have many Breguets that you like, guilloche dials and whatnot. But if you're picking an icon from Breguet, which are you picking?
I approve with the Type 21. I really like it. But personally, I would have picked a more typical Breguet. I know the tradition and the history of this particular model, but I so love those guilloche dials. So I would have picked a different one. But again, this is my opinion. This is my taste, and it's totally irrelevant to Timepiece Fund. If he likes that model, it's totally fine.
But that being said, I take advice from everybody. Of course, I make my own decision, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But I appreciate and the advice from the experts is very important. And the Breguet Marine, I looked at it. They offered a gold one to me, and I'm also looking at what Archie says. Ooh, it drops. Right out of get out of the room, and so for the first Super 30, the ones I want to wear daily, and I didn't care if if it got banged or if it got hold up and somebody swiped it off my wrist. I just didn't want to go into statement pieces. I wanted to get into an entry level, respectable pieces that Archie and the panel would consider. You know what? That's a good one. I know it's a startup, but that's a good one.
And look, Archie would have hated me for this comment, right? Where I did own the 5711 blue, and I did sell it because I was underwhelmed. I had the Royal Oak at the time, and I felt that the Royal Oak was just a better watch. To me, it didn't speak to me. Everyone knows my story. I went to Geneva many years.
When you're not happy with the watch, why stick on it because other approve? I don't get it.
Well, that's exactly the point of why I sold it, right? I bought that watch because everyone was like, oh, you should buy the Nautilus first as your first Patek, and I bought it. And and my whole story was I went to Geneva, I was wearing my Royal Oak, and I was telling some professor yesterday it was all Rolex Patek. Went to the museum, I learned about the history, and I really got, I caught the bug. And then I made the mistake, and and people might think this is outlandish, but I made the mistake of buying a Nautilus first. When to me, what I like about Patek Philippe is, their dress watches. I like their complicated dress watches. I like their simple dress watches, and those really sing to me. And so, yeah, I was underwhelmed with what the Nautilus. It just didn't. It didn't speak to me, and I got rid of it. And I don't have any regrets around it. Sure, would have been nice to have a bit more money, yeah, but it's not the end of the world, right? Money comes and goes. And look, for Breguet, I pulled up this retrograde date Breguet, and I don't know, Jonathan, if this is something you'd be interested in. This would be what I'd be looking at for Breguet myself. I don't know if you would go for a more simple guilloche dial, like a classique or something.
No. I learned to love those, and I think it's a fantastic watch. Also, not in a very old-fashioned traditional way with the guilloche dial covering the entire watch. So I think it's a very refreshing take to a thing that Abraham Louis Breguet did back then, and it's totally fine and fantastic watches.
We got a member super chat here, so I'm gonna just post it. So I got it. So we got Mr. Zoso, a member for 19 months, bronze member, 3807 Type 20 Japan edition. Let's look at this. 3807 Type
Hey, Mr.
20
Zoso.
Japan edition.
Good to see you.
Pull this up. All right, it's an Aéronaval, and I'm hoping I get the right one here. Let me pull this up. I gotta get a good picture. All right, Mr. Z, let us know if this is the Breguet you're talking about. 3807
He's talking about
Aéronaval.
bronze, so I'm not sure if it's a bronze case. I'm just guessing here.
I don't. No, bronze is his membership.
Is there? I can see a bronze style. If you go a little bit up, there is a bronze style.
No. When it says bronze in that message, it's his membership level is bronze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, this is a beautiful blue dial on this Breguet Type 20. I really do dig this one. Look, a Type 20 is a piece that I think like Timepiece Fund is saying he wants to be able to wear his watches, and this is definitely one, especially in the piece he got, where it's extremely I think it's extremely usable and is a really good choice. So yeah, I don't have a beef with that choice. Look, Timepiece Fund, I'm not going to get in so much into like, is it worth the money, or because that's all relative, right? Like it's relative to what you paid, and what you pay, even with inflation and everything else, watches do go up naturally anyways. So if you paid at the right price, it could be a good buy. So I'm never going to be like, well, hey, it's going to go down in price. Well, not necessarily. People say that about Panerai, but if you buy a PAM 111, it's not at the right price. It's not necessarily going to go down.
So Mr. Zosa says,
I've taken Archie's advice. I just kind of randomly ran into him in YouTube, and I stopped buying all the mid-tier Schreiters, as he says it, right? And I'm glad I discovered him, because it put me in a path to get Rolex. It put me in a path to pursue this, Super 30, and kind of pick pieces from each brand. And also it stopped me from acquiring watches for the sake of watches. You know what I'm saying? So, I think it's great advice. And maybe this is opportune time to share that the reason I support Archie, and I like, listening to him, even though, lately it's kind of been same thing, and I'm glad you were helping him, is because he's always been about, look, you can buy great watches, iconic watches, and you don't have to lose your shirt.
Absolutely. And the one thing I will say about those, so I try to adhere to the one piece per brand as much as I can. And the one challenge I've found about that has been when I do it and then I change up my collection and then I go back to it, what ends up happening is that I keep kind of gravitating towards the same watches sometimes. Like when I think of Omega, I always gravitate to the Moon watch. And so, a way to get around that is potentially to get a Snoopy, or to get you know, in the 1861 a Mitsukoshi dial, limited edition, or just have a converted Mitsukoshi dial or something like that. Like what? But I ended up always gravitating, even though, you know, I bought a Seamaster at one point. I was like, not really for me. And, you know, certain brands like Panerai, right? For me, it's the Luminor. I buy the, you know, I bought multiple ones. I bought the 005, you know, 111, 112, and, you know, maybe I go to a Radiomir next. But for me, it's been tough because as I try to go back to it, I'm always kind of feeling like I'm gravitating to the same pieces. And then I'm, you know, and you see this with Archie right now, Timepiece Fund, is people are a little bit like telling him, hey, don't buy the same collection you used to have. Like, we want to see something different. But I think because he does that philosophy, he kind of gravitates back into certain pieces like the Bluesy
Right.
or the Reverso Grand Date or the 5196. These are pieces he's already had, but he's using the same philosophy you are, and it's kind of just pushing him back into that, right? So,
You know, and also once you connect emotionally with the watch, as you age, it's really hard to disconnect. You know, you know, that's something people who've owned watches. I've owned watches 1998, so about 25 years, right? Different watches. There are some. Believe me, there are some Schneiders I have bought, in my journey, and even then, those watches are hard to kind of let go of. It's just it's hard to explain, but I'm sure the watch collectors can can see what that means.
do you want to welcome our new panelist here, Jonathan? We got a new member joining us.
Oh, is it necessary that we have Mr. GMT on this panel?
I
No.
love
Hello,
what's
Mr.
going on
GMT. Good
with you two.
to talk.
What's going on, boys? I'm driving to work. I thought I'd jump on and say hello to Timepiece Fund. What's going on, brother?
How you doing? It's great. How's the gyros? We call it gyros here in New York.
Gyros, yeah, I know.
He's
You know
not
what?
doing
You know,
gyros.
everywhere.
I was gonna say
What's that?
something funny that GMT does, right? So to avoid people calling it gyros, he spells it with a Y, so everyone can pronounce it properly as euros. But like everywhere
No,
else,
but that's how we spell it. That's how we spell it over here. Honest.
Yeah. You know, in Chicago, I went to school in Chicago, my grad school as well, and they call it euros. Only when I moved to New York, back in 1994, that's when I heard gyros, how they called it.
It's crazy, man. I don't know. I don't know where they got that from because that doesn't even that's not even a word in Greek, right? So it's just bizarre that they call it that way.
But the G in Greek, right? When you see a lot of names like Giannis or whatever, right? But it's spelled with a G.
Giannis, yeah.
Yeah, but it's pronounced like with a Y, and so in North America, a euro is spelled GYRO, and that's why everyone calls it a gyro. But when you see people's names, like the famous basketball player Giannis, but he spells it with a G. So I think that's where it's coming from. But I noticed on yours you spell it with a Y, right? So it's just easier for people to get. Yeah.
Can we go to?
Over here in Australia, that's how we spell it.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I think Richard Greenberg made a very good question. I would like to address to that. He says it's amazing how all those micro watch brands have become popular on YouTube these days. With the question mark, I don't think this is a YouTube phenomenon. If you're talking with those independent watchmakers, with the owners, with the people who run the company, they've been flooded with orders in the last couple of months and years. In the last couple of years, I would say, after having suffered so long for being ignored by the watch public. So I don't think this is a YouTube thing. I think this is a general recognition thing. Also because many of the big brands, just look at the AP, are moving boutique only, and that gives space to multi-brand stores to try out something else and to give those independents a chance.
I would say that the independents are connecting a lot more with watch collectors and watch enthusiasts, and people are speaking about it. People are excited about it, right? Like I said, I had my own personal conversation with Edouard Mellon from Moser, and other people have had, you've met with Xavier from Czapek and other brands, Van Anderson, Benjamin Shi. And that really, like I said, amplifies people's interest in those brands, and they speak and they get excited about it. And I think that's important because on YouTube, we're starting to talk about other brands that are outside of the norm because we're not feeling connected necessarily to Rolex or to Patek or to AP or these other brands that are actually fighting us off a bit because we can't get their watches. So I think people are gravitating to other watchmakers that are better suited to the level of engagement that I think people are looking for.
Biff Helms makes a comment. A lot of micro brands, I would guess, are going out of business as well. Not sure if that happens in the next couple of years. I think they have a bright future, and I can. Everybody knows that I've been ordering this watch with Anders in Genève, and Sven Andersen was on an interview. He's now 80, and he has now his brand for 43 years. And a couple of years ago, he gave the company to somebody who is younger, who is able physically to carry on with the brand. And I think that may be a challenge for many independents, but I see their future in the next decades or two to be very bright, because we've been talking about that. I think the demand for high-end watches is gonna go up. So I don't worry too much about the independent brands.
I don't know if you guys saw the message that comes up when you go on Kronefeld's website, but the first thing you see is, "Sorry guys, we are sold out. You know, we're overwhelmed with orders and whatnot." So it seems this brand is not struggling by any means in terms of interest in it. Timepiece Fund, have you ever considered a Kronefeld? Is this something that has appealed to you at all?
No, I'm not as sophisticated when it comes to watch knowledge, so I pretty much blindly follow what Archie has to say. I mean, in the future I may. Right now, I'm focused on getting the Super 30 done and get Archie bless it, and then of course, as resource becomes available as part of my diversification strategy, I'm always open to anything.
Well, I think
if you follow Archie's advice, you certainly haven't heard about Kronefeld, I would say.
No, but even Archie himself, right? His perspective has changed over time, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
tells the story of how he didn't like Lange. He appreciated Lange, but he didn't ever recommend it. And then he met up with, I think, a collector in Singapore who showed him a Lange one, and Archie just fell in love, right? Like his experience with these pieces is minimal, and therefore he's going to be reserved in terms of what he feels is going to be, like Timepiece Fund is talking about, something that's a bit of a safer bet. If you need to get out of it, if you care about value retention. But here's the interesting fact too. If you're seeing some of the auctions that are going on today, a lot of these independent brands like MB&F, and you're seeing FP Journe and other brands are actually doing pretty well at auctions. So there is a market for these pieces, albeit a lot smaller than going on Rolex forums and trying to flick a Submariner date, for example. But Timepiece Fund, these brands are definitely taking off. You're seeing it with the amount of buzz with Czapek when it comes to the Antarctic, or even FP Journes out there as well. So I would say I'd probably still keep my eye on this kind of stuff, because I think it's in the time frame of the next couple of years they could become a lot more mainstream.
Interesting. Certainly, we'll take your advice, of course. The next one, the fifth one, part of the Super 30 is the GLC Reverso Classic Large Dual Face Small Seconds, reference. I mean, just 384-8420.
384-8420.
Yeah. So, as a kid, I did play polo. So I never wore this watch as a kid, of course, but I did play polo as a kid, and now I know the history, as Archie said. So I had to get that watch.
So this is your classic Reverso. I owned a Reverso 976, which is the one that Timely owns. Very similar dial layout to this, small seconds. Beautiful. This is a beautiful classic reverse. To me, this is what, when I think of a Reverso, this is what it looks like. I always felt that this watch, when I wore it dressed up, dressed down, was extremely versatile. One of the best. I'm a huge fan of the Reverso. So yeah, this to me, speaks to me as the Reverso when I think of a Reverso in my mind.
So the sixth one is the Blancpain, and that one is Villeret.
Just one sec before you get to it. I got a challenge here from Dirt. How do I pronounce this here, Jonathan, again?
Der Stiefel.
Der Stiefel. The boot. The boot is asking me, Tant, one watch of your choice for the rest of your life or 30 grand Seikos. Which do you choose? One watch of my choice for the rest of my life. That would be, if it could be any watch, I would go with a Patek Philippe 3970 perpetual calendar chronograph. But that's a little bit out of reach for me. So if I'm going to be honest around what I could afford comfortably, it would likely be a Patek Philippe perpetual calendar, either the 5320, which is the Center Seconds one, or the 5327 that I showed you guys yesterday, which is your classic perpetual calendar. It's a watch that I would wear every single day. I would disintegrate many straps in the summertime, but I would have a ton of fun doing it. But
you know, Tanny, funny you should say that. You know, I've asked that question to myself because there's so many YouTubers talking about one and done. And I asked myself, look, the one and done must have lume on it, because when you're old, you want to wear that watch because you kind of get attached to your precious things as you get older, as your time comes near. And if you can't see that lume at night when you wake up 3 times to go to the bathroom, that watch would be worth nothing for you. So joke or not, it has to have lume.
Yeah, so the 5320 does have lume on it. It's a perpetual calendar, center seconds, Arabic numerals, syringe hands. So this would fit the bill in that sense of if I was looking for something that I did need to read in the dark. Yeah, it would fit the bill. The 5327 doesn't. So that probably wouldn't work out. But the folks do say I'm already a one watch man. And you can see that one watch. I'm wearing it right now. It is the 5212. And look, I'd be extremely happy if this is the only Patek Philippe that I have for the rest of my life. You know, hopefully I can get more. But I do.
But Tan, seriously, what a watch, man. Seriously, what a watch.
Dude, it's a watch that I can enjoy every single day, outside of Jonathan pointing out the fact that I can't go swimming in it. But outside of that, it's, yeah, man, what else do you need, right? Calendar watch, steel case, 40 millimeters, schmicko to me, right? So
syringe hands, as Archie would say, right?
This one is syringe hands.
You know, that's why watches were invented to be taken off when you go swimming, mate. You don't have to have a watch when you go swimming. Swimming's for swimming. You don't need to worry about it.
You can always have Seikos for swimming.
Exactly, or a Rolex up. So.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, I do have two. I have the 5196 as well. That's more of a it's really thin, guys. So in the gold could, you know, you could definitely ding that watch very quickly. So yeah, it's one that I wouldn't wear all the time. It's definitely a more special occasion, or, you know, not as often, I would say, would I wear that watch. Beautiful watch. I do love the 5196. But in all honesty, if they come out with a new reference 96, I'll probably flick out of it and get a newer version, because like Jonathan said, it does kill me that it's a really, really small movement for the 37 millimeter case. So
what's this watch? You know, the one that you got on the screen right now. What's this watch worth?
You can get this for roughly mid 60s, I would say. So maybe 66 to 68, you know, mid to high 60s US. It's not bad. The retail on this is like it's 100 grand retail. Like, so you get a 30% discount.
I know
secondary. Like, it's a pretty good deal. You know, but again, right, like when you get into grand complications, there's a small market of people buying them. And when there's not a lot of buyers, right, you know, people will definitely have to probably sell it at a discount to get them out.
Look, this is a case. I remember when perpetual calendars were below 30, and I thought, why are people not buying them? Now they are at 60, and we're wondering why people are not buying them. And very soon they're probably 100, and we will all say, well, we remember when they were 60, and we were wondering why people are not buying them.
We have the distinguished, esteemed professor joining the panel.
Welcome, Professor.
Welcome,
hey,
Professor.
guys. Yasu, Professor. Yasu.
Yasu Megale.
You know, love the gray-haired men, myself included.
The professor gives a lot of great insight. I love having him on the show.
And he's gonna hate me for hoarding, the Western hoarding of Super 30. So, Professor, we're talking about Tan's helping me with the Super 30, one watch a day.
We're going to Blancpain. Yeah, the Blancpain Villaret. Can you give me the reference?
Yes. So Blancpain Villaret Ultra Plate. It's 6651. 1127 55B as in boy. That's the 6th watch part of Super 30 I have acquired. So I'm trying to build a Super 30, Professor, for the last 3 years. It's something that is achievable, but that's something Archie would approve, and Archie and the panels would approve. So these are not your statement pieces, and many of them are entry level, but many are. I'm trying to stick to one piece per brand, so it's been very difficult. So this is the one. Yeah, go ahead.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's an interesting choice because when you're thinking of one piece per brand, I think if anybody hears the word or the brand Blancpain, they immediately beeline to the 50 fathoms. And you chose to go on a dress piece on a Blancpain. Why this choice over the 50 fathoms for you?
Yeah, so great question. I I debated that internally a lot, and I wore the 50 fathom at the AD. That watch wears too big on my wrist, even though that's the one you should get when it comes to Blancpain. And I asked the AD, okay, what are the alternatives? And I'm 58, so I'm kind of aging. So a lot of my Seiko divers feels heavy on the hand.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, even though Omegas kind of feel heavy in the hand, surprisingly, Rolex doesn't feel that heavy. I don't know why. They must have known that these watches must be worn lifetime, so
they give you superpower.
Yeah, they kind of thought through that, and I'm always happy to give extra money to Rolex because it's nonprofit. I don't know what they do with their money, but so that's why. It's because 50 fathom was, if they had 50 fathom, I can go all the way up to 42, even though you will know when we go through the Super 30, the IWC is the 46 one, and I'll explain why I chose that particular piece.
Mm-hmm.
But more than 42, more than 43, more than 42 on a bracelet, and more than 43 on a strap. Unless I love it, then it, as as a watch, enthusiast, you have to love it, and then it doesn't matter. If you don't love it, then it's going to start bugging you.
For me, Timepiece Fund, like when I think of dive watches, right? Like I'm very hard pressed to find one I like outside of the Submariner. Whenever I have and I have a Tudor Black Bay right now with a collection full of, a Hulk and a Date Submariner and everything else. Like I just find it redundant. I'm like, do I need more than one diver? And I used to collect divers. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I used to collect Seiko vintage divers as well. So I used to love.
I've heard that.
I used to love divers, and today for me, I'm not like, appealed to go to buy a 50 fathoms or a Seamaster or anything that comes to mind when you think of divers. I'm just like, you know what? For me, all I need is a Submariner. If it was just a basic Submariner Date, no problem. I don't. There's nothing out there that really appeals to me from a diver perspective. So if I were looking at Blancpain, I'd probably do the same. I probably would shy away from the 50 fathoms just because I would buy it because it's an icon, but like I would never really truly enjoy it because I'd always gravitate back to the sub. Higgins, Professor GMT, any thoughts on the Blancpain before we move on?
In saying that, I've got to head off. Thank you for having me. Nice meeting you. Timepiece Fund. Awesome to actually talk to you for the first time. But I've got to head off. Take care, boys, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, Mr. GMT.
Stay sexy.
All the best.
Stay sexy. All right, let's pivot then. You're mentioning IWC. Why don't you give me the IWC reference?
Let me just give you a Rolex reference first. So I debated, I have a Panda as well, and debated against Panda and the GMT Jubilee Pepsi. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna go because the Moonwatch is a chronograph that Archie loves. I have to go with the GMT, so I went with the GMT Jubilee.
So 126710 BLRO on a Jubilee. That is to me the one and done Rolex. I absolutely love mine. I think this is one like as
you want to bring it up?
I'm going to bring it up right now. Yeah, Bear always talks about the search for perfect timepiece. I think that if you're looking at Rolex, like to me, this is the sweet spot. Can't find one that's more perfect than this. So, and I have one of these in my collection. So, yeah, thumbs up for me on this one. I take this over the Daytona. Like, I'm not a huge Daytona fan. I prefer this watch to the Daytona.
Me too. I just take offense on the Jubilee.
Hey, look, if you want to sell me your Daytona for MSRP, Jonathan, I'll wire the funds tonight.
It depends on what you give me in return in terms of watches.
Yeah, I told you I'd wire you MSRP.
No, I'm not interested in money.
I'm not interested in
I'm
money.
interested in watches.
It's a running joke, Timepiece Fund, that Jonathan has a Panda with stickers on it, and he's just waiting for the opportune moment to time the market. And Professor told us, guys, you can't time the market. So
yeah, by the way, I know Archie is not too crazy about Glashütte, but I got into Glashütte because of Higgins. So that's just FYI. We'll talk about that. But
Wow.
yeah.
Great.
So I was offered the Batman long time before Rolex became a hype. Batman on the Oyster, and I think that's the proper way to wear the black Batman, and Pepsi on Jubilee is the proper way to wear this one. So, and I was debating against that because and then I learned through Archie's conversation and the panel's discussion that this one right here, what you have, is original GMT. So that's the one I went with. Okay, so we can go to the 7th watch, to IWC Timezoner. It's a limited to 1500, and I'll give you a reference number in a second, unless you can.
Is it IW 395001?
Bear with me. It's a new Timezoner that just came a year during COVID. They have a patent on it, because
it's a ceramic. Is the black one or is it?
No, it's a blue one. It's a Prince Le Petit, and you can they have a patent. It's a 1500 limited edition. They have a patent that you can. There's a word for it. You control it to the crown. There's a control it to the bezel. There's a word for that. For that. I don't know what
it's a Petit Prince on this one.
Yeah, Petit Prince time zone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one right there. And they have a patent where you can control the world time through the bezel. You lift the bezel up and you move the bezel, and then you drop it down, and then automatically the time sets up, to that country.
So we're gonna ask the question, Professor. Do you prefer this world timer to this world timer right here?
Wait. I mean, one is a bespoke piece.
Right.
Well, no, it
And
wasn't.
the other-
No, Jonathan. I don't know if you caught the live stream last night with ArchieLuxury, but GMT referred to your watch as a made-to-measure piece, meaning it's already on the rack and you just tailor it to yourself. Whereas a Savile Row bespoke suit is completely made for you. So it's a made-to-measure piece, is what.
Well,
it is.
he has a point, because the watch exists. I just changed a lot of the details or the components, but the basic concept of the watch stands. So for once, Mr. GMT was not totally wrong.
We just thought it would trigger you, but it obviously didn't. So
No, wait. No, but the piece all pieces are like this. I mean, unless you are a billionaire, they'll make a special piece for you, or a king. It's still a bespoke piece, right? So even if you have the cities as per the preference of Jonathan, it's still a bespoke piece. So one is a bespoke piece, and another one is a very nice, beautiful piece.
Jonathan, you see what I'm highlighting right here?
What are you highlighting?
No, I'm on my phone.
Oh, it's saying
I can't see the city.
No, so Timepiece Fund. We take a bit of a rabbit hole here on world timers, because whenever
my God, yeah,
I'm looking at Rio de Janeiro. So Jonathan says, I think yours is what, Rio DJ is yours?
Yes.
And this one says R. Janeiro.
Yeah, they took the wrong direction, in my opinion.
Well, and the other direction would have been Rio, right? Just
Yes.
RIO on the dial. So just interesting to see the way and the different cities that get on to the thing. So for example, you have Riyadh here, which is the capital of Saudi Arabia, on the city ring as well. I'm just trying to think of seeing other ones here that are a bit out of the ordinary. Everything else looks pretty much. You got Beijing on here. Some of them have Hong Kong, I believe. on the on
You
the
know what irks me is that they don't have India in any of these world.
Yeah, they don't. You got Bangladesh here with Dhaka, and you got Karachi for
Yeah,
Pakistan.
you have Karachi and Dhaka. They have no Bombay or New Delhi. That's
Whereas Jonathan's
surprising.
does have Mumbai or Bombay on his.
Yeah, I've been roasted for having Bombay on it, and the
Timepiece Fund.
criticism doesn't.
Let me ask you the question then. If to signify a city in India that you'd want on your, if you got it custom made for yourself, which city would it be?
You know, it would have to be Tulsipur. That's my lineage, but they will never put that in. It's a small town. But yeah, Delhi. Delhi is, you know, I mean, it's a home to literally 1/6 of the population of the world. So yeah, Delhi, New Delhi.
New Delhi. I would go for the same. Jonathan went for Bombay. He has a romantic view of Bombay. I told him don't drink the water when he goes there, or he's gonna get what we call Delhi belly.
Tanzil.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
Don't draw me in such a negative light. I'm totally aware that that Bombay is not, or Mumbai is not like we in the West sometimes romanticize it. So I have a pretty good idea how the reality looks like.
I've never actually been there. I don't know, Timepiece Fund, if you've been. I've never been to Bombay.
No, you know, Mr. Higgins, Bombay is so interesting, is because it's a Heisenberg's dichotomy. You have human misery at the same time. You have Antilla, which is the most expensive home in the world. It's amazing how in humans sort of kind of, a professor would probably chime into this. You know, you've got, it's like having, in America, it would never happen. You know, it's like, next to Bill Gates, you have slums, Bill Gates mansion. It'll never happen because we have too much French Revolution in us. But the acceptance culture in South Asia is just amazing. That just gives me a pause. It upsets me, but it gives me a pause.
So we got Timezoner here. IWC. So look, for me, IWC, it's a brand that I have a very tough time finding any love for. The new Ingenieurs, like, they're okay. I just don't see myself going and purchasing one. I'm not that enamored by that piece. I do understand why they're doing it. I think it's going to be a great success for the brand. I never really found a watch that I liked in IWC, whether it was from the Big Pilot, the Portuguese, or the Portofino's. This is a very nice looking watch. I do like the blue dial. I think this is a very well, you got this big crown on it as well, which is pretty cool. Very IWC. So no real issues on my side about this piece. I just don't have a lot of affinity for the brand, but I do think this is a good choice.
So, by the way, Nomos is another German brand I have, and we'll talk about that in a second, part of the Super 30. But when Jamie showed me, went through his wall timer, you had to kind of open the crown and kind of fiddle with it to get the time right. On this one, you can just lift up the dial and rotate whichever you want to the city you want and drop it down. And those hour hands and the minute hands will change to that instantly. That's what was amazing about this piece.
Wow. And I think it's a good point here that the Casey Jones Brooklyn is talking about, a refreshing change from talking Rolex Steel sports watches and AD tricks for hours. Like, look, just learning even that little tidbit about this piece, right, is cool because, for me, that is what I find interesting. Is something that I would never have actually researched myself, would never have gone down that rabbit hole, but I learn about it and then it ropes me in, right? So,
if you would listen to the Swiss and John show, I mentioned that at least twice.
Yeah, I'm new to the Swiss and John show. I'm an unpaid intern, like Ali Reza would say. I'm just learning on the Swiss and John show, but definitely Mr. Higgins does go through pretty elaborate watch talk on Saturday afternoons here in North America and evening time in Europe. Why don't we move on from IWC?
Sure.
What's the next one?
So last comment is to Mr. Higgins is that I'm not sure how IWC was able to acquire a patent on that function because Nomos does it through a what's that thing called on the side?
A pusher.
pusher. And Nomos does that through a pusher, but in the Nomos you have to kind of keep pushing until you get to the town, get to the city you want to get to. But on this, it's like pull up, rotate. It's much faster action than Nomos. So they have a patent on it. Okay, just with that, the next one is Zenith Chronomaster Revival El Primero A384, and the reference is, it's a long one, but I think we all know what that watch is. 03 A384 400 / 21.C815. That probably just means on the strap.
Chronomaster A384 038.
While you bring that up, I just want to update the professor that this is a personal quest of mine to build a Super 30 collection, one watch per day, but make sure it's one per brand, and make it slightly more democratic. And not make it a statement piece, not like, oh, I have this, nobody can have it. No, it's an entry-level piece to a brand that everyone can aspire to. That's really the idea behind that. No, not this one, A384.
Just give me 1 sec. I'll get the super chat, then I'll go back to it. Neo, Hello Humanity says $5. The Gregorian calendar has 4 months that are 30 days long, and 7 months that are 31 days.
So that is good for those who are worrying about the perpetual calendar, because basically it just is needed for a very small.
Sheikh Tanzil, if we include the Hijri calendar, then it's gonna get very messy.
Oh my God, there's so many.
Is there actually a Hijri? Is there a Hijri calendar?
On a watch? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure Patek Philippe would commission it for the Saudi Arabian government if they wanted it.
Tanzil, there is a question. Casey Jones Brooklyn is asking it now for the second time. New Engineer is a Selita movement, right? At 12,000 retail, that's a tough sell. It's not a Selita, it's an ETA movement, which is highly modified by IWC. I know that from own experience, because I own an IWC with a modified ETA. It's much more than just putting a logo on the rotor. And just allow me one sentence. That flat ETA movement is doing the Engineer very good, because the old was just too thick with the IWC own movement.
Yeah, and look, it goes into the whole point of, like, do you need an in-house movement? What is an in-house movement? Jonathan likes to point out that when is Patek Philippe going to create its own in-house chronograph movement? Comparing it to the old Lemania movement and saying they basically copied the Lemania movement and slapped on their name on it, right? And, look, a lot of watches out there had Bosch movements in the past. JLC Reverso had an Bosch movement. The Nautilus had an Bosch movement. The Royal Oak had an Bosch movement. Really, up until this year, the Royal Oak had an Bosch movement, or last year, in the old 15202. So does it really matter? To some people it does, right? To some people, they do feel that if they're spending $12,000, that they believe the brand should do its own engineering, create its own movement. Other people love the fact that it's an ETA movement and will be easily serviceable by any competent watchmaker.
Can I also add, people are complaining that it's a $12,000 watch. Keep in mind, an AP with an own movement is, I don't know, 23, 25 now. So it's still a big price gap for a non-in-house movement.
Are you talking about the 15202, the jumbo?
No, the normal one.
The
41 millimeter, 15500.
Yeah, but that's not an Bosch movement. That's their own movement.
Yeah, I'm saying that. No, because people are complaining that the IWC is overpriced compared to an AP. And my point is, still at 11 or 13, it's a big gap to a Royal Oak.
Yeah, look, he's just saying that 12K for an ETA movement is a bit too much. And I get that, right? Casey Jones Brooklyn, that makes sense. Some people don't feel that they want to spend that kind of money in an ETA movement. From my own experience in Panerai, for example, I would purchase a Panerai ETA over the new Panerais. I've had issues in the past with certain Panerais, and my watchmaker has been a breeze to get parts, to service it at a very affordable rate. And I do actually like the ETA PAMs, but you know, again, it's a $5,000 watch. It's not a $12,000 watch, and I can understand in today's day and age, the norm of the market is to have an in-house movement, and you know, for them to release something without it, you know, could definitely be a sour point to a lot of people. Is this the right Chronomaster? If I pulled up the right one?
Yes, yeah, this is the right one. The one I bought was what with the strap.
The one with the strap. I think there's this one here has a, oh no, let's there we go. There's a strap.
Yep.
There we go. Nice.
That's a beautiful one. That is the vintage reedition.
Very nice. I think what I'm seeing in your collection Timepiece Fund is you're not moving away from some of the icons, but you're not necessarily hitting like the one that everybody would think about, right? The El Primero that everybody would get. And that is actually a very interesting thing because it does bring up pieces that I think are very unique, that have a story behind them, that are something that you can tell when someone thinks, oh, I have a Zenith and I'm picking a one watch per brand. Well, what El Primero did you buy, right? You know, this definitely has a pretty unique story, and I think is a good choice.
The next one is Navitimer B01 43M on a strap.
Let's check now.
And while you pull that up, just to bring up Professor to the speed, the one we've talked about in the past is Patek 6119R, Vacheron dual time black dial with the red pip, and a Lange 1815 up down. That's not in the collection yet, but that's the only holdout of the Super 30, 29 watches. That will be the 30th one, but that's the one I'm pursuing. And Breguet Type 21, the new one, JLC dual face large, and Blancpain. I think you were there when Blancpain came, and then GMT Pepsi with the Jubilee bracelet.
Magpie says £2. I'd wear that upvote if you're wearing a watch. Thank you, Magpie. Is this the right Navitimer? The right color?
Yeah, this looks. The photograph is probably not the best one, but yeah.
It's just because there's different dials, right? There's a couple of different dials.
Yeah, no, not that one. It's the white. It's the white circular. The one with the palm. Yeah, that's the one. It's a 43. They come in two sizes, 46 and 43. This is 43 on a not a croc strap, but on a regular stitch calf strap.
Very nice.
You made the right choice in terms of diameter, certainly. Because you know there is another trend that is happening, and this will, I think, dominate the next 5 years. That watches are becoming smaller, not bigger.
I have. I picked up the Cosmonaut that was released just recently. That's 41 mm, and I debated whether I would put that watch or this watch as part of Super 30. And I said, you know what? Nobody's gonna really care about, because there's so many versions of Cosmonauts released. Yeah. This one is only 365. And it has a 24-hour dial, and it's on a bracelet, and it's 41M. Nobody's gonna really know it, so I just put that part of the fun, and I put this one as part of my daily wear. So yeah, this everyone would recognize.
For me, the Navitimer is the Breitling that I would buy. I'm not a huge fan of the Super Ocean Heritage or the Chronomat. Like, for me, I love the Navitimer, and you know, the B01 that I like the blue dial on a bracelet. I have a colleague at work that has one, and it's like the watch that gets like the most compliments. Now his is a 46, so it's very big. And you know, I definitely like the 43 as a size. But for me, yeah, it's always been the Navitimer. Archie used to love the Navitimer. If you ever see his Luxury to Last book, it was in his top 10. Yep. And I keep trying to get him back into it. Like, hey, let's talk about the Navitimer. He can never get past the fact that Zinn also does a Navitimer, and you know, it looks the exact same as Breitling. He always brings it up, and he just can't get over that for some reason. But yeah, I think the Navitimer for Breitling is a great choice. I think that's, if you're picking a one watch per brand, if I were picking a one watch per brand, I would go for the Navitimer all day long.
So the 11th.
May I ask you something? Is the intention here to change, to have 30 watches so that you can alternate?
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm not advocating it, but it's something.
No.
Catches my fancy, right? It's like, of course you could be one and done. Of course you could be 3 and done. I respect all that, but I've got this personality. I get kind of sort of bored, and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go for Super 30, and I'm gonna call it my Super 30, even though it's a little bit pretentious, I would suppose. Super 30 is supposed to be all the statement pieces. I'm not pursuing that. I'm pursuing my Super 30, where it's one per brand, and I'm trying to get per brand that watch to be as iconic as possible, and also adhere to Archie's ethos, which is retains value. It's iconic. It's accessible. It's not this solid gold thing that nobody wants. It's not in your face. It's something that everybody can relate to.
We got a $5 super chat here from Neo. Hello, humanity. With all due respect, you'll end up spending $250K, and you will wear each watch 12 times a year. Now, Neo, you could wear multiple watches throughout the day. You don't have to always wear a watch.
And exactly, that's what I do.
I'm definitely a culprit when it comes to this. Man, I'm switching watches. Yeah. I have to switch a watch and send Jonathan a couple of pictures so he doesn't think I only own one watch. And then he'll respond by saying, okay, Tan has proved he owns more than one watch. He owns 2 watches or something he'll say to me.
No, I'm saying you're going to the AD trying on watch.
Oh yes. Jonathan says, well, you're just going to an AD and sending watch pictures from that. But yeah, no, I think what the chat is saying in the Timepiece Fund is obviously, and everyone's got a different threshold for a number of watches, right? Like, I think a watch collection can just be fine with 3. It could be fine with 5. It could be fine with 8 or 7. Like, it's whatever your threshold is. There's other people that want to wear multiple watches multiple times a day. And yeah, I mean, if that's what you want, then, 200 could be your number, right? Like, I don't think anybody can definitively say what's the sweet spot, because I think everyone's preferences and tastes are different.
Yeah, I mean, there could, there will be some individual come to me and say, no, why don't you sell all your Super 30 and get a, that Daytona, what is it, Rainbow Daytona, or something like that, right? And I would never be happy, just having 30 different watches just makes me happy. It's kind of like that.
That's great. I am very happy for you, and wear them in health and prosperity, and why not? Nobody can tell you anything. I mean, it's fantastic if you can support this, and I would advise people to get also 30 women and change each day.
Only Donald Trump can do
I think they'll be more expensive. You'll end up having a bigger, fatter bill with 30 women, but we can do Super 30 women.
That is a typical Greek reply, may I say that?
Why? Why eat from the same plate every day, man? Just get a few more women.
I would love to go to. I'd love to go to a buffet with Professor.
Professor, you didn't hear me disagreeing with you, have you?
Oh, you did? No. I'm just adding. I'm adding to the fury.
Professor, they've done research with chimpanzees and even mice. What variety does to procreation. So, but to answer, I get it. But part of me going into this journey was also to look for an asset class, right? And that's why you will see in the choices I made, they're more conservative, they're more traditional, they're more perhaps I quote that, retains value. So it's with all those thoughts in the mind is why I pursued the Super 30.
I love this. I love this super chat from Cosmic. $2. Thoughts on CERN scientists proposal of a 25-hour day. Well, ArchieLuxury says all of our watches are going to be worth nothing if we go to a 25-hour day. And I even said, hey, if we scrap daylight savings time, you know, Jonathan and Archie's world times would actually be functional complications for, for all of the year and not just most of the year. So
yes, the old timers are okay. Are we ready for the next?
Yes, sir.
11th one is we already talked briefly about it when we talked Lange, Glashütte original,
a Panomatic.
Panomatic blue dial. Yeah,
blue dial. Yes, let's pull that up.
Would love to have Professor's opinion on it because we've already talked about it. So, and this is the reason why I didn't go for Lange 1. I went for Lange 1815 up down.
Oh,
Professor.
And before you get to the Professor, we got a $5 super chat from Neo. Hello, humanity. At $300 an hour, you can have a different woman each day for 2.28 years.
Oh, that's 250 that he's talking about.
All right, we got a Glashütte Original Panomatic Lunar Blue Dial, Professor. He wanted your opinion and take.
This is a beautiful watch. Beautiful dial. I think you don't need 30 women. Stick to the watch and have 3 women.
I have
go down, you know.
Containing 1 woman at home.
No, of course. Of course. You can have 2 on the side. No issue.
So, Professor, we asked Timepiece Fund around, you know, his choice of taking the Lange 1815 up down as the icon as opposed to the Lange 1. And this was his reason, is because when he wanted to buy a Glashütte Original, it was this Panomatic Lunar, which he felt was very close to the Lange 1. So it made a lot of sense. You know, and I think this blue dial is just, it's stunning. It's the right choice. It would be what I would get, I think, from if I was go with Geo. I know that Higgins likes his CQ sport watch for Geo. Higgins, would you not consider? I know you have a Lange 1, but let's say you didn't and you were in Timepiece Fund's position. Is this an option?
No. It's totally okay. I understand his reasoning. And may I say that the blue dial is so much better than Mr. GMT's watch. He has the same watch with the silver dial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he does. And the blue dial is definitely better than the silver dial. I would agree.
No. It's not definitely. It is all a matter of taste, of course. I'm just saying that to poke fun of Mr. GMT.
But you see the sun hitting this blue dial. Like it's, I think this is next level. So.
Yeah, it's a beautiful watch, my friend. You've done very well.
There you go, Professor. You're getting
I'm
a nice
happy,
compliment.
very happy.
You're getting a compliment from Fella today. He says, "I'm really enjoying."
Fella, my friend, my dear friend, thank you so much.
All right.
Is he located in the UK? I'm willing to go and see him if he's in the UK.
No, Fella's in the US. He's US based.
Okay, when I go to the US, East Coast, West Coast, North, South.
He's all over, man. Like he's really all.
He's
over.
all over, man.
Yeah, he's
okay,
Jin's met him, and Archie's met him.
Oh, okay, all right.
Where are we going next time, Piece Fun?
Yeah, the 12th out of Super 30 would be SPGA 211, the Grand Seiko. You have to have 1 Grand Seiko, Snowflake dial.
Ooh.
Oh.
This is an interesting one because, you know, Snowflake is, we're gonna have some contenders to the Snowflake, and one of them for me would be the white birch or the black birch.
Oh, that's the one I don't have. Part of the 30 Grand Seikos I have actually.
And you have the one where it says Grand Seiko. You don't have Seiko Grand Seiko, like
right,
yeah,
correct,
okay.
Right,
you have the new one. Yeah.
Right.
So, Jonathan, as a Grand Seiko fanboy, which we all know, and a big defender of Grand Seiko, you know, when a lot of people think of Grand Seiko, right, they think of these pieces, the ones that have the very interesting dials that are in this range of the, you know, $8,000, $10,000 range, not something that's like $50,000, for example. I would say that most people, when they think of Grand Seiko as if you could have 1 Grand Seiko, I think the Snowflake is the one that comes up all the time.
I think historically, for us Western people, this is certainly the most important piece for Grand Seiko. Keep in mind that it's the first Grand Seiko that got a nickname. All the others were just known with the reference numbers.
and that changed with the Snowflake. So historically, it's very important. I personally have a problem to really love the Snowflake because the batons, the markers are just too big. There's so many beautiful Grand Seikos that have slimmer batons, those razor sharp markers, which I personally prefer over them. But Timepiece Fund has 30 Grand Seikos, so he can switch around and choose another one.
Well, another thing too is it's a spring drive, right? It's like I'm showing the white birch where you have both the option of a spring drive as well as your traditional mechanical movement. And Timepiece Fund, for you, was spring drive an important factor in the decision, or was it more around the Snowflake dial itself?
No, a spring drive, and so this was acquired 3 years ago when it first came out. I would prefer the spring drive to now. They make spring drive where it's in the back of the dial. They put that, and so it's a clean.
The power reserve, yeah.
Yeah, the power reserve. They put that. So yeah, and then you again going back to harking back to the iconic statement piece, not statement piece. Universal, recognizable, and this is what consistently came up as consensus. That's why I picked this one. But
let me add to
Higgins. Can you tell me? Can you recommend a couple of two pieces within Grand Seiko? I'm just trying to think if I have them in my possession already.
So not sure if you have the cherry blossom, the SBG.
Oh yes, I do. Yes.
So, in my opinion, that is the far better watch compared to the Snowflake.
There is a cherry. So there's a cherry blossom for him, and there's a cherry blossom for her. Manual wind.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me add to Tan's question. So you've been asking spring drive, or would you go automatic? I would say if he has those Super 30. He will end up with 29 watches with a mechanical or automatic movement. Mm-hmm. So why not having a different movement for the Grand Seiko when it's possible and when it makes sense?
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. And this one, the cherry blossom, is also a spring drive, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. What was the other one?
Look at that is my point with the markers. Look at those tiny, slim, skinny markers compared to the Snowflake. In my opinion, that's no comparison. Just for those who say, "Oh, I don't like a pink dial," you can see the pink color only under a very strong light in a certain angle. Normally, the dial appears to be silver colored.
I see.
And there's a matching one. You could do it for the missus. SPGW 285, I believe. It's a manual wind with the pink. That just came out 6 months ago.
SPGW 25?
285. It's a manual wind. Oop, not 285. Hold on, just a second.
Well, Jonathan, while I have this one up, I'm just going to look at it anyways.
It's a pink dial, not that one. It's no, that's a green one. There's a pink one. Jonathan, can you help me with it?
Is it this one? I think it's 289, maybe.
289. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like his and hers. If you wanted to.
I could see Jin wearing this watch. He likes these kind of dials. As a man, he definitely likes his flamboyant dials. So. And Van Lux says the pink dial looks beautiful. There you go. So you said there was two of them, right? So you had his opinion on the cherry blossom. What was the other one you were going to ask?
Mr. Higgins?
Yeah, you were going to ask.
No, I was asking him if he had any recommendation in high beat or if he.
Oh yes, the cherry blossom was your first one, Jonathan. What was your second?
Yeah, cherry blossom would be my recommendation if you go spring drive. If you want to go mechanical with Grand Seiko, I recommend the new high beat movement, which is not going through the line. I think the Evolution 9 cases are the only ones that received that new movement so far. So, for example, that one here, I can't see if it's dark blue or if it's black.
It's black. It's the black birch.
Yeah, so they have a black birch and they have also the dark blue dial in.
Hey, Captain Zed, haven't seen you in a while. Says the pink one's a ladyboy watch, and yes, Jin would definitely like to wear the pink one. Yes.
So that would be an alternative if Timepiece Fund wants to go mechanical and high beat.
You know, by the way, talking about Ladyboy watch, Archie keeps talking about getting SPGW 231, which is the same size watch as a 281 we just showed, on a white dial at manual wind, and he's always
manual wind 37, I think.
231 or 237, I forget.
I think
this is the 231.
231, yeah. He said 231, yeah.
No, it's 37 millimeters. That is what.
Yes.
No, yeah. There's another one that is smaller. Yeah, it was like a 33 or 34.
Actually, that is the cheap ass Calatrava.
Yeah.
Because that is 37 millimeters, just like his Calatrava. Beautifully finished, fantastic watch.
Right. What's next, Timepiece Fund?
Okay, the next one is Heuer, Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen. All right. Is this your standard Monaco? Is it a Gulf Monaco?
Yeah, the blue Monaco.
Blue Monaco. All right, we'll even get a nice picture of Steve McQueen. Is it a caliber 11?
Yes, it had to be if you go with that.
You never know. Well, Archie would always recommend a caliber 11 over a caliber 12. So
right. That's yeah. I'm going with Archie's.
So in the Heuer lineup, boys,
wow, you have a lot of watches, my friend. Saad, General Saad was correct. How many years it took you?
No, he exaggerated by 5 times, so 200 watches, not 1,000.
200 watches.
Yeah.
you need to open a museum.
It's true.
No, Terry he's already done that. I've been to that Patek Philippe museum, and it's beautiful. That's already done.
Yeah, look, for me, the Heuer Monaco, like this is the one and done. Other options, obviously the Carrera. Higgins, Professor, do you guys have another preference in the Tag Heuer lineup or the Heuer, Tag Heuer now lineup?
Well, the other alternative would be a Carrera, the round classic one.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Carrera, so I'm going. Even though the Monaco look, it just doesn't fit me very well in the square shape. I know the GMT has one and it looks really good on his wrist, but for me, it does. The reversal looks good on me. The Monaco doesn't. So it's a piece I usually wouldn't buy. But if I were to get one, it would be, and I might even go with the Gulf one. I like the Gulf livery on it.
Yes. The Gulf one's pretty unique too. Yes.
GMT says the Monaco rocks. Yes, sir.
Oh, did Mr. GMT hear my comment about his Panomatic dial?
Yeah, he agreed. He said Jonathan is always right, and he appreciates your feedback.
So I don't know. I have to say to Mr. GMT, if we change from Monaco, the O, and put it as Munico, then it's a fantastic Greek word, which means pussy. So it is the rock that moves.
And Mr. Professor, the moniker of Patek, Porsche, and Pussy is right here. Your host, Mr. Tanzil.
Oh yes, that is true.
I've
always been the bad influence on Archie when it comes to Patek Philippe. I don't know what it is. He loves it, and nobody wants to talk about it with him but me. So it's always been my shtick these days with him. But look, Monaco, yeah, this is the one to get, no doubt. Caliber 11, you got the right one. That's the sweet spot. That's the icon. No questions asked.
The next one is the Moonwatch 1861, right?
Yes, sir. Did you get the Moonwatch Hesselite or
Hesselite? Hesselite. It had to be Hesselite.
Had to be Hesselite.
Are we going through 200 watches? Or
no, we're going through 30 watches.
30, okay. Which watch is this now?
This is 14th.
Wow, okay.
So now the shooters are coming. I just had to go through the acceptable ones.
Wow.
The punters will go wild. They'll have enough to say as I go through the list. The shooters are coming, believe me.
And look, the 1861 is a classic piece. My only qualm with the 1861 is I didn't really care so much for this bracelet. I like the new bracelet on the 3861, which is a lot of people are some people love it, some people hate it. I never liked the bracelet on the 1861, But outside of that, I had the Hasselite. I never owned the Sapphire Sandwich because I'm a purist like you are, where it's like Hasselite has to be Hasselite. Even when I was buying my 3861, my guy was like, "Are you sure you don't want the Sapphire Sandwich? It's a really nice piece." And I'm like, "Nope, needs to be Hasselite." So yeah, no, this is a good one. A couple alternatives too here. I'll bring up some oddball ones here. Mr. Jonathan Quill Higgins, I'm sure you're familiar with this piece, but this is a Tintin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the Tintin or the Tintin?
It's visually very interesting, but he goes for the basic model, so you can't go wrong with the classic Speedy.
Do you know the story of the Tintin?
Well, I know Tintin, and I know this pattern on that spaceship. If you
So
mean
yeah,
that.
So Omega wanted to do a collaboration with Tintin and
With Hergé.
Yeah, with Hergé, and the estate couldn't come to an actual agreement on I guess the watch. Now there was one created that has actual Tintin a real reference to Tintin outside of obviously the track here that you can see that actually is branded correctly. It's never been seen in the public. It hasn't come up for sale, but there is one that exists with the actual branding. But the collaboration didn't happen. Omega went out with this watch, and it just got the nickname Tintin, but it didn't really have a direct collaboration with them. Yeah.
I didn't know that they were going out for a collaboration and then dropped it. But it makes sense because that track is so iconic and similar to that spaceship, which is iconic for Tintin.
One more alternative for you here, Timepiece Fun, is the Mitsukoshi dial, Mitsukoshi Speedmaster. This is the Pander. This was limited to 300 for the department store in Japan. Mitsukoshi. A few have come up for sale. I don't know if David SW still has one. Let me see if he still has it up for sale. He had one the other day, or maybe 2 weeks ago, up for sale. His website says, "Please check back soon." So I guess it's getting updated. But this is the watch. I think he was selling it for about $29,000 for the Mitsukoshi, an original, because you can actually buy these dials from Omega for your 1861.
Oh, really? You can just buy the dial?
You can just buy the dial and swap it out. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Thank you for telling me. I will go to the AD and request that. By the way, that just brought me to my another watch, which is not part of the Super 30. It's the 40 millimeter racer, Speedmaster racer that has the Panda dial. You want to bring that up?
Yes, sir.
Just for, and it's very affordable. It's available. It's like less than $5,000 watch, but it really looks nice actually.
Now I'm coming up with a few of them here, so let me know which one it is.
Yeah, right there.
This one, okay.
Yeah. Has a dark bezel. It's a little, elongated registers, but it wears 40 mm. It's a little tall watch, and the bracelet is a little bit old, old style, but still aesthetically good looking watch.
It's a little bit different to the usual Speedmaster. I personally like it.
Yeah. For me, a Panda dial is always very very aesthetically pleasing, and this is like I said, this is a good looking watch. So no doubt about it. I actually only got a few minutes left. Timepiece Fun. So if you have another heavy hitter,
part two.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a part two.
Or we can go fast if you want. Your choice.
Let's do a part two. I want to give you some more time on this. I do want to go through all 30s. We've gone through almost
so let me go to the 15th, the last one. The Panerai Lumina GMT PAM 01088.
01088.
Right, 01088. So there's a little story why this watch spoke with me. I was looking at all the PAMs that I would emotionally connect, and I went to all boys Catholic school, boarding school, and it was the story we read was One-Eyed King, Twala the One-Eyed King. And that small seconds reminded me of that One-Eyed Twala the One-Eyed King, and I got that, and I felt very good, in that watch. So that's the story behind it.
The punters are paying here for a part two. Neo Hello Humanity says $2. We want a part two. So here's a couple options for you, Timepiece Fun. If you are available in about 2 hours, Archie will be on the stream, and we could do a part two with Archie. Or you could do a part two with us. We kind of do afternoon streams to cover the European
Yeah,
market and stuff like
I
that.
think
So
it would be more suited for your because Archie's stream gets a little, and there's all kinds of characters, and I don't want
mhm.
to hog the time. I want this to be just watch talk.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. It's whatever you like. We've pivoted a lot on Archie's main show. So if you haven't checked it out recently, he basically does watch talk every night now. And
Yesterday
yeah,
would have been perfect because it was kind of
mhm.
low, it was kind of low time. But
Yeah,
but
it's
I also
yeah.
want to make sure, we've got, because right now I'm very fortunate to have you and Higgins and I know Jin left early, but Professor and Saad on the chat, because the input from the experts is very important.
For me,
So
Panerai.
Tanzil,
Yeah,
if
go
you
ahead.
want to arrange something with Timepiece Fund, I'm happy to oblige. Then just because or for the reason Timepiece Fund is really a genuinely kind guy, and I just love to interact with him. So
Yeah,
my offer
I'm
stands. Whenever you want to do that, I will make it possible.
yeah, here Timepiece Fun. I'll just link my number in the chat if you just want to shoot me a WhatsApp at some point in the private chat.
Yep.
We can just arrange a time, and I can shoot out links to Professor Higgins and Sod and everybody else. But
Yes.
when it comes to the Panerais, right, the Luminar case for me is always my favorite. I prefer it to the Radiomir, and when it comes to Panerai Luminors, I like the base Pams. I'll get I have like a 112, for example. I used to have. I recently sold it to a friend. Um, or just really like I like just small seconds. Um, what got you into buying I saw the obviously a story that you gave of this complication. But what kind of pushed you towards the GMT specifically, or was it just
No,
the
it
aesthetic
was
of this watch?
yeah, it was not the GMT. It was the aesthetic of this watch. So it was the Twala, the One-Eyed King. It had, because Archer said, get 111 manual wine. That's
Hmm.
the original Pam,
Hmm.
and it was just too bland for me, And I saw this, and I'm like, wow, this reminds me of the of my boyhood story in the boarding school. That's kind of little character, and I can kind of look at it and laugh at it and remember those, the story. So
And
that's
look, like
yeah,
I think that's more important than just buying the icon, right? Just buying something you have no connection with, and just because everybody else likes it, right? Like here, you have a personal connection. When you look at the watch, it reminds you of something, and I think that's what's special about watch collecting is, anybody who would just, if you randomly super chatted this one day and said, "What do you think, Archie, of the PAM 01088?" and half of the chat's going to be like, "Oh, you should get this, you should get that," right? Because it's not very specific, but to you, you're telling us a story that I think we lose sometimes when we do like paid reviews or any kind of reviews is the story of the collector around why they chose this watch, what it means to them. And because this is a unique PAM, I obviously the Luminar case I understand, but for me it's very interesting to learn why you chose this one, whether it was a complication, but you said it was more the aesthetic of something that reminded you that whenever you look
yeah,
at this, you're going to remember school, right? So
yeah,
So
absolutely. And
how can I comment on that? Because now I get the story. The white subdial would not be my personal preference, but for you it makes perfectly sense.
and there's just to add to it, we were all boys, and there was a kid in our class that actually had one eye, and one eye was just like glass, and the way he lost that one eye was in his father's hunting trip. It's
mm,
just sad accident, but long story short, and and we used, how kids are so mean to each other, especially in boarding school. We used to call him Twala, the one-eyed king, and
mm,
and and actually, many years later, after we all have had kids and we're all gray, and in a reunion, I pulled him aside and said, "I'm so sorry I called you that." And he just laughed. He was a great guy. He just laughed at it and said, "Oh, are you kidding me? I love that name. Keep calling me Twala."
No, hey, I appreciate, Timepiece Fun, you hopping on and giving us a story around all your pieces because some of them are, exactly what you would think they would be, like the Monaco and the Speedmaster. Other ones were a little different, and giving the reasoning of and the logic behind, your strategy in collecting is very, very. It's been very unique, I would say, rather than us just scrolling through websites saying, "Oh, this is what I like," or me telling Higgins why I like, the 5212 or what have you. Um, I think it's been a very unique stream in that sense, where we've been able to get someone who shares why, they made a purchase that may be off the beaten path that we like to talk about. And you heard from a lot of the chat members saying, hey, this is different than just, kind of circle jerking Rolex all day. And, I really like to give people the time of day, whether it's in the chat or anybody who hops on, to just talk about their journey, talk about their stories. Hey, if I don't agree with you, or if, the panelists don't agree, everybody has a safe forum to really talk about their opinions, their strategies, their philosophies around watch collecting. Because for me, it's always put me on a path and set me down a path where I always kind of learn something from everybody that, hey, maybe I didn't think of, that IWC World Time or the Timezoner, right? So maybe I'm going to go research a bit of it after the show, and it's going to put me down a path of interest. And that's what I find super fulfilling from these streams, is about that. A lot of people ask me, well, why do you do this, right? Why do you just do it for free, or why do you go on and do that? And for me, like I said, I always look at this live stream that I do as a bunch of boys sitting down at a table, having a drink, having a fireside chat, having a cigar, just talking about what we love, what we have, a shared passion. And that's the fulfillment I get out of doing this kind of stuff.
I'm only here for the chicks.
Higgins is here for the chicks, and Professor's here to give us guidance on how many chicks we need.
And just to incite Professor's wrath on me, I could have easily padded that Super 30 with 20 Rolexes I have, but I just didn't want to do that. I really wanted to do I wanted to be true to the hobby, and I said, look, it doesn't matter. You could always collect what you want, buy what you want, right? But it's more about what do you connect with, what are you gonna wear? And granted, we all wear, and we want to get validation from people. If we didn't get validation, it didn't mean anything, right? I mean, we're flawed that way, and part of the journey is that, and I get it, but I really wanted to put aside that emotion and say, you know what? I really wanted to get into one watch per brand, even if it's a shitter. And it's okay for punters to shit at me. It would just, bring conversation. It's kind of like a, jousting of the knights, right? It would just bring up would liven up the conversation. So next 15 will be shitters, believe me.
Next 15 will be very controversial, but we like a bit of controversy here on the show. Higgins, Professor, and myself, we've said a lot of controversial things in the past couple of weeks when it came to watch collecting. So, and we're not afraid to do it, right? I'm not afraid to challenge and say that, because
absolutely,
in open dialogue, we need that, right? What I don't want is everybody coming in here saying, I love this, I love that. I mean, I heard Higgins talking about Patek on his show yesterday. I couldn't believe it. It was like Armageddon. The second coming of the Messiah was happening or something, or Higgins was talking about Patek Philippe on his show, and I was talking about Lange on my show, and everyone kind of thought it was kind of Bizarro's world yesterday. But with that note, guys, it's been a little over 3 hours. If you haven't caught the whole show, definitely rewind and check out the rest. I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who joined Timepiece Fund for spending so much time with us, talking about his watches. Really appreciate that. Professor, for hopping on, always giving us a bit of spice to the show and a lot of fun. And Mr. Higgins for giving a bit of jousting with Mr. GMT and always his excellent watch knowledge. But with that, I'll end, and we'll see you guys actually in 2 hours with ArchieLuxury, where we're going to talk watches. We're going to have a bit of fun, a bit of comedy, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
And I'm waiting for part 2.
Thank you. Look forward.